The press conference for the film Once Loved You was in full swing. The moment meant for the trailer premiere arrived, but what flashed onto the giant screen was not a preview, but a shockingly explicit private video. Oh my God, isn't that the star of the movie, Anya Nightingale? In the video, Anya was kneeling on a hotel bed, wearing nothing but a black slip. Her face was flushed, her breathy moans tantalizing. Who's that man? The rumors said Anya Nightingale slept her way to the top. Could they be true? The room was packed with reporters. Faced with a scandal of this magnitude, they all shot to their feet, swarming toward the pale-faced woman on the stage. Anya felt a cold, debilitating weakness wash over her. She leaned against the wall, barely able to stand. How could an intimate moment between her and Ethan Hawthorne suddenly be exposed like this? Who did this? Anya Nightingale, how do you explain this video? Reporters shoved microphones in her face, trapping her in a tight circle as questions flooded in like a tidal wave. Who is the man in the video? Is this the first time you've been part of the casting couch? Why would you release a video like this at your own movie premiere? Are you trying to get famous by being infamous? I didn't, Anya said, her first instinct to run, but the reporters weren't about to let her go without a story. They grabbed her, holding her fast. Miss Nightingale, who is the man in the video? Your behavior is so indecent, completely at odds with your innocent public persona. Which one is the real you? Have you been deceiving the public? I haven't, Anya cried, trying to push them away. Let me go, let me through. Miss Nightingale, answer our questions. The reporters blocked her path. In the chaotic shoving and pulling, Anya lost her footing and fell hard to the ground. But even then, they wouldn't leave her alone. Get away, Anya's mind went blank as her emotions spiraled out of control. She flailed her arms wildly, trying to fend them off. The scene descended into chaos. A reporter stumbled into a massive promotional billboard nearby. The sign teetered for a moment before crashing down with a deafening boom. Look out, the reporters scattered, but Anya, still on the floor in the middle of the crowd, had no time to move. The heavy billboard slammed down on top of her. Security finally arrived, pushing the reporters back as they helped Anya to her feet and rushed her to the dressing room. Blood was streaming from her wound. She was still reeling from the shock, sitting in the dressing room trembling, not even thinking to wipe the blood from her face. The sound of urgent footsteps echoed from the doorway. It was the director. Anya Nightingale, the director strode forward and slapped her hard across the face. Look what you've done, you've completely ruined my movie, Anya pleaded. Director, I'm sorry, I can make it up to you. The director shoved her away. Anya fell to the floor again, scraping her knees. After a disaster like this, no amount of money will be enough, just wait for my lawsuit. He stormed out, taking all the security guards with him. Without security to hold them back, the reporters would soon surround her again, hounding her with endless questions. Terrified, Anya fumbled for her phone with trembling fingers and called the only person she could rely on, the man she had been married to for a year. Ethan, Nia, happy birthday. Ethan Hawthorne's deep, husky voice was filled with an almost giddy delight. Did you get my birthday surprise? What? Anya's thoughts were a tangled mess. She couldn't process his words. Ethan chuckled. The little interlude at the press conference. Did you like it? Anya froze, a wave of disbelief washing over her. On the other end of the line, her husband's voice turned cold, each word a razor's edge. Anya Nightingale, this is just the beginning. Ethan Hawthorne hung up. The relentless reporters quickly found Anya again, trapping her as they hurled one vile question after another. Her agent didn't come. The company didn't call. No one cared if she lived or died. The reporters were like hyenas, taking turns interrogating her, giving her not a single moment to breathe. After a sleepless night, her face was ashen, her makeup smeared. She hadn't had a drop of water, and her lips were cracked and bleeding. The reporters even publicly broadcasted her location. During the night Anya was trapped, the internet had already exploded. Rumors flew that she had even blackmailed and sullied the reputation of the male lead in Once Loved You. The male lead was the hottest young star of the moment. His fans were instantly enraged, wanting to flay the hussy Anya alive. A large group of his most devoted fans stormed the dressing room. They attacked Anya, grabbing her hair, slapping her face, and even trying to strip her naked to broadcast live to their millions of fellow followers online. No, Anya was beaten until her face was a canvas of purple and blue. Her once beautiful features were swollen and distorted, grotesque. She clutched at the last scraps of her clothing, fighting to preserve her final shred of dignity. "Let go, you tramp, let everyone see what a pathetic slut you are," the fans kicked and punched her. Anya's head spun, her nose filled with blood. She was on the verge of passing out. No, she clung to consciousness with her last ounce of strength, refusing to give in. The brutal assault lasted for half an hour before the police finally arrived, dispersing the chaotic crowd and rescuing Anya from her personal hell. A female officer took pity on her, taking off her own jacket to wrap around Anya and escorting her to a nearby hospital. But public outrage was at a fever pitch. Wherever Anya went, the fans and reporters followed, refusing to let her go. Her injuries were severe, but she couldn't even get into the hospital. In the end, with the help of the police, she managed to hide away in a cheap motel to catch her breath, clinging to life. Curled up under the covers, she drifted in and out of a semi-conscious state for hours before feeling returned to her body. From her face to her body, there wasn't a single spot that hadn't been bruised by the out-of-control fans. She held onto the wall, painfully making her way to the bathroom. In the mirror, a distorted, swollen, and utterly unfamiliar face stared back at her. Anya's eyes welled up, and she broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. Why? Why was Ethan Hawthorne doing this to her? She knew he didn't love her. They had been married for over 6 months before they first slept together, and that was only because he was drunk. Otherwise, he wouldn't even touch her. She knew her place. If Ethan didn't like her, she did her best not to bother him, quietly living her days in their empty villa. Then, suddenly, Ethan had started coming home. He started touching her, like a normal husband. She had thought their marriage was finally becoming harmonious. Even though Ethan barely spoke to her, at least they were a real couple, sharing the same bed. That was why she had tried to satisfy his every outrageous request in bed. She just never imagined that the videos would be released to the public. Anya covered her face and knelt on the floor, her body racked with a complete breakdown and heavy crying. How did it come to this? She couldn't understand it, and she couldn't accept it. She needed to know why. Anya pushed herself up, grabbed the motel's landline, and dialed the number she knew by heart. "Ethan, tell me why." Anya's voice was a raw, broken rasp. "Why are you doing this to me?" There was a moment of silence on the other end, then came Ethan's voice, dripping with disgust. He said, "Anya Nightingale, why aren't you dead yet?" Anya's grip on the phone tightened. She couldn't utter another word. "Could you just hurry up and die?" Ethan said impatiently. "Just looking at you makes me sick." "Tell me why Ethan Hawthorne, at least give me a reason," she shrieked in despair. How could he treat her like this? Ethan's words were ice. "Because you deserve to die. Anya Nightingale, if it weren't for your donation fraud, my mother would never have died in the year we've been married. There hasn't been a single day I haven't wanted to kill you." I explained. I didn't. The line went dead. He had hung up on her. Ethan wouldn't listen to her explanation. Anya collapsed into hopeless sobs. Over a year ago, Ethan's mother was critically ill and needed a kidney transplant. Anya had volunteered to be the donor. In return, Mrs. Hawthorne had made Ethan promise to marry Anya and never initiate a divorce. But to Anya's shock, the surgery failed. The doctor claimed that Anya had never donated the kidney at all. It was a case of organ donation fraud. A medical examination of Anya confirmed that she still had both her kidneys. But she clearly remembered being taken into the operating room, being given anesthesia. To this day, she still didn't understand what had really happened. All she knew was that from that moment on, Ethan's attitude toward her had turned glacial. No matter how she tried to explain, he refused to believe her. Anya cried until she passed out. She developed a severe fever. Her body ached, and the pain from her wounds was unbearable, as if she were dying. She instinctively wanted to go to the hospital, but the fever and excruciating pain made it impossible to even get out of bed. She could only lie there, hopelessly enduring the torment. After a long struggle, she managed to gather a sliver of strength and called her agent, hoping he could take her to the hospital to save her life. But the agent's voice was cold. "Don't call me again. You're no longer an artist with our company." Anya was stunned. "What do you mean?" "Our contract is terminated," the agent said. "Whether you live or die from now on, don't contact me." "You can't do this." Anya was at rock bottom. If her agent abandoned her, she would truly be left here to die. "We signed a 3-year contract. How can you just break it?" The agent let out a dry "oh." "Right, you reminded me. Given that your indecent video has damaged the company's reputation and caused massive losses for the film Once Loved You, we will be suing you for compensation. Get ready, the court summons will arrive in a few days. I've estimated the damages for you $50 million. Have it ready, or you'll go to jail." He hung up without a second thought. This was completely unreasonable. She was the victim in this, Anya tried to argue, but when she called back, she found she had been blocked. In a fit of rage, she slammed the phone down. She sat powerlessly on the edge of the bed, tears of despair streaming down her face. The whole world was pushing her to die. The reporters, the fans, her agent, and Ethan, everyone wanted her dead. The fever made her dizzy. The bruises covering her body had become inflamed, and a sharp, gnawing pain shot through her bones. No one was coming to save her. She was going to die of sickness in this cheap motel room. It hurt so much, Anya wrapped her arms around herself. Even if she survived this, a $50 million lawsuit was waiting for her. $50 million, penniless as she was, where could she possibly get that kind of money? Maybe it would be better to just die. Once the thought surfaced, it spread like wildfire. The illness had weakened her will. Without hesitation, she walked into the bathroom, filled the tub with hot water, and sat down inside. She held a razor blade tightly in her hand, her slender wrist exposed. One cut, and it would all be over. Her fingertips trembled. Ethan's voice echoed in her mind, "Could you just hurry up and die?" "Fine, Ethan Hawthorne. I'll give you what you want. I'll go die." As the blade cut into her flesh, the spreading pain made Anya flinch. She didn't want to die like this. She had to live to prove her innocence. She scrambled out of the bathtub. Perhaps it was her fierce will to survive that gave her strength. Ignoring the intense pain racking her body, she found a hat to hide her face and went outside. She needed to see a doctor. Anya didn't dare go to a proper hospital for fear of being recognized. She found a small pharmacy, hoping to buy medicine and treat her wounds herself. She was a wretched, pathetic sight. The swelling and bruising had so distorted her features that the people in the pharmacy didn't even recognize her. She successfully bought the medicine. Having not eaten for a day and a night, Anya was so hungry she was seeing black spots. She carefully avoided crowded areas and found a secluded roadside stall where she devoured a bowl of noodles. Then, with her medicine in hand, she started back toward the motel. As cars passed by on the road, she saw something completely unexpected. Ethan Hawthorne. His car was parked on the side of the road, the window down, revealing his handsome, aristocratic profile. He seemed to be waiting for someone. Anya froze in place. A moment later, a woman wearing a baseball cap and sunglasses emerged from a shop and slipped into the car. Ethan immediately turned to her. They exchanged a few words, and the woman took off her sunglasses. She wrapped her arms around his neck, lifted her head, and offered her red lips. Right there on the street, they fell into a passionate kiss. Anya stood rooted to the spot, a chilling cold seeping into her bones, as if she'd been plunged into an icy abyss. She knew that woman. It was her biggest rival in the entertainment industry, Georgina Croft, who had schemed against her countless times, both openly and in secret. But now, that woman was kissing her husband. Ethan Hawthorne was cheating on her. Anya's hands clenched into fists, her body trembling. Blinded by rage, she threw caution to the wind. In a few quick steps, she rushed to the car, grabbed the window frame, and screamed, "Ethan Hawthorne, get out here!" The couple in the car, wrapped in an embrace, were startled by her sudden appearance. Georgina, in particular, let out a shriek and immediately buried herself in Ethan's arms. "Ethan, who is this ugly woman?" Anya's face was swollen and bruised, her features twisted. She had lost every trace of her former beauty. Ethan turned to look at her. His gaze faltered for a fraction of a second. Anya was certain he had recognized her. "I don't know," he said coldly. "Probably some crazy woman. Her face is so scary. I don't want to look at her," Georgina whined. "Then let's go now," Ethan said, and immediately started to raise the car window. Anya clung to the window, refusing to let go. Her fingers were crushed in the glass, the pain excruciating, but she held on, screaming in a storm of grief and fury. "Ethan Hawthorne, I'm your wife, your lawfully wedded wife. How could you cheat on me? And you, Georgina Croft, you're a mistress." She had been through too much in the last 2 days. Her emotions were out of control. She had lost all reason. "I'll tell everyone about this, Georgina Croft. I'll let the whole world know you seduce married men." Georgina looked terrified, her eyes turning red. "Ethan, no. I don't want to be condemned by public opinion, please don't." Ethan patted her back gently, his voice soft. "Don't worry, I won't let you suffer that kind of humiliation." He turned his head, his cold gaze locking onto Anya's. "If you dare say a single word of this to anyone, I'll cut out your tongue and make you wish you were dead." Anya screamed back, broken. "I already wish I was dead, Ethan Hawthorne. Do you know I almost killed myself just now? I loved you so much, why are you still doing this to me?" Ethan's brow furrowed in annoyance. "If you're going to die, go die somewhere far away. Stop bothering me, Anya Nightingale. Don't push me to get rough with you again." With his patience gone, he urged the driver to go. The car started to move, but Anya's fingers were still trapped in the window. The car dragged her forward. As the car picked up speed, she couldn't keep up. She was being dragged along the pavement. She lost her footing, her legs tangling beneath her, and she fell. Her ankle scraped violently against the asphalt, and a piercing scream tore from her lips. "So noisy," Ethan said with disgust. He finally lowered the window, allowing Anya to break free and tumble onto the road. She rolled over several times on the pavement, the box of medicines scattering around her in a pathetic display. A sharp pain shot through her ankle, triggering the agony from her other wounds. Black spots danced before her eyes, and for a long moment, Anya couldn't get up. A loud ringing filled her ears, and for a moment, she lost all feeling in her body. When she came to, she was surrounded by a crowd, and their sharp shouts pierced the haze. "That's her, that's Anya Nightingale, the bitch who forced herself on our idol. She dares to show her face, strip her." "Yeah, strip the shameless hussy." Fists rained down on her like thunder, and fingers tore at her clothes. Anya wanted to scream, "Don't," but she couldn't even form a sound. She lay weakly on the ground, instinctively curling up to protect her head. "Stop!" a man's angry voice finally roared. The people around her were pushed away, and someone gathered her into their arms. Anya tried to see who it was, but her eyes were swollen shut. She couldn't make out his face. Her head was spinning, her body ached. Everything went black, and she lost consciousness. In a hazy delirium, she was trapped in a long, terrifying nightmare. In the dream, Ethan Hawthorne's fingers were wrapped around her neck, choking her. Then the scene shifted. She and Ethan were on a massive screen in a public square, and below them, a countless mob hurled insults at her. They pointed and screamed, shouting the most vile things imaginable. Anya's face was streaked with tears. She felt utterly hopeless. "Anya," a voice called out anxiously beside her. "Anya, wake up." Anya's eyelashes fluttered. With a great effort, she finally broke free from the horrifying nightmare. The bright sunlight stung her eyes. She squeezed them shut, and after a few moments, slowly adjusted to the light and looked toward the figure beside her. "Anya, how are you feeling? Do your wounds hurt a lot?" The person who had saved her was Lucas Jenkins, one of her assistants. "It's you." Anya's voice was a rough, dry rasp, her throat parched as if she hadn't had water in ages. "I'm sorry, I couldn't get here sooner to help you." Lucas helped her sit up and handed her a cup with a straw. As she drank, he explained, "You've been unconscious for 3 whole days." No wonder the nightmare had felt so long. Anya drank some water, which soothed her throat. She asked weakly, "Why did you help me?" Although Lucas was her assistant, they didn't talk much. They had only eaten together twice and never alone. Her agent and other assistants had always been there. Their relationship was nothing more than that of ordinary colleagues. Now that Anya was in trouble, he was the only one who had stepped in to save her. A warmth spread through Anya's chest. So, not everyone was indifferent to whether she lived or died. "I'm your assistant, of course I should help you," Lucas said. He brought over a bowl of warm porridge and began to feed her. "But I've already been fired by the company," Anya said. "Haven't you seen the news? I'm a social pariah now. I've seen it." Lucas lowered his head, avoiding her gaze. "But I want to protect you, that's all." Anya's heart skipped a beat, but a selfish impulse made her swallow the words on the tip of her tongue. She was afraid that if Lucas confessed his feelings, she wouldn't be able to reciprocate, and he might abandon her, plunging her back into the desolate state of being utterly alone. She would die. If she had to go through that again, she would definitely die. So Anya didn't ask any more questions. She accepted all of Lucas's care. It took a full month for her wounds to heal. The swelling on her face finally went down, and she no longer looked like a monster. But just then, another piece of unwelcome news arrived. Anya Nightingale was pregnant. After enduring Ethan Hawthorne's vicious cruelty, she was pregnant. If she had to go through that again, she would definitely die. So Anya didn't ask any more questions. She accepted all of Lucas's care. It took a full month for her wounds to heal. The swelling on her face finally went down, and she no longer looked like a monster. But just then, another piece of unwelcome news arrived. Anya Nightingale was pregnant. After enduring Ethan Hawthorne's vicious cruelty, she was pregnant. Anya decided she would have the child. The baby was innocent. Since it had come into this world, it had a right to live. But before she gave birth, she had to divorce Ethan Hawthorne. She also had to deal with the $50 million lawsuit from the entertainment company. She had been missing for a month, and the online buzz about her video had finally started to die down. She could go out now with a hat and a mask. When she returned to the villa where she had lived for over a year and entered the passcode, the display showed an error. Anya froze for a second but didn't overthink it. She rang the doorbell. After a long wait, a lazy voice answered from the other side. "Who is it?" The voice made Anya's body go rigid. It was Georgina Croft. The sound of locks turning echoed, and the metal gate swung open. Georgina appeared in the doorway, wearing a silk nightgown, her long hair loose and flowing. She looked stunningly beautiful, every bit the lady of the house. In the month Anya had been gone, Georgina had taken her place. Anya clenched her fists, using all her willpower to keep from exploding on the spot. "Who are you?" Georgina didn't recognize the masked Anya. Anya pressed her lips together and removed her mask. Georgina recognized her face. Her expression stiffened for a moment, then twisted into a cold sneer. "Anya Nightingale, you're not dead yet. You dare to come back. Aren't you afraid Ethan will deal with you even more harshly?" Anya's face was calm, but her voice was tight. "I came back to divorce him." Those words made Georgina stare blankly. Before she could respond, a tall, imposing figure appeared in the living room behind her. It was Ethan Hawthorne, whom she hadn't seen in a month. Anya's pupils contracted sharply. She unconsciously dug her nails into her arm as she stared at Ethan and repeated, word for word, "I came back to divorce Ethan Hawthorne." Ethan turned his head and stared at her coldly. After a moment of silence, he looked away, his expression indifferent. He sat down on the sofa and said flatly, "Anya Nightingale, come in." Georgina's brow furrowed slightly, but she said nothing, obediently stepping aside to let Anya enter the villa. Anya placed the documents she had prepared on the coffee table. Looking down, she said, "The divorce papers. I've already prepared them. Ethan Hawthorne, sign them. From now on, we go our separate ways and have nothing to do with each other." Ethan's fingers twitched on his knee. He didn't reach for the papers. Instead, he asked, "What's your relationship with Lucas Jenkins?" Anya said warily, "How do you know about Lucas?" A sudden, cruel smile spread across Ethan's face. His eyes locked onto Anya. "Has he been with you? How many times? Did he make you feel good?" Anya frowned. "What I do with him is none of your business, Ethan Hawthorne. Don't you like Georgina Croft? I'm bowing out. I'll let you two be together. Just sign the papers, and I'll never appear before you again." Every word she spoke was an effort to sever all ties. Ethan shot Anya a hard look, then picked up the papers. His eyes scanned them quickly, a mocking sneer playing on his lips. "Give you $50 million in compensation?" He looked up, his gaze filled with undisguised coldness and disgust. "Anya Nightingale, what do you think you are? You want me to pay you $50 million? Anya tensed. "Give it to me, and we'll get divorced immediately. If you don't, your affair with Georgina Croft will be exposed." She knew Ethan wouldn't give her the money easily, so she had come prepared. "If you don't agree within an hour, someone will leak the story to every reporter and paparazzo out there." Georgina's face paled instantly. She was at the peak of her career and couldn't afford this kind of negative press. "Ethan," she cooed, wrapping her arm around his, "our relationship can't be exposed yet, or my career will be ruined." Ethan patted her hand reassuringly, then turned his sharp, dark gaze on Anya. "Fine. As it happens, I have something I want to show you too." Anya's heart clenched with unease. "What?" Ethan ignored her, turning to Georgina with a gentle tone. "You should go out for a bit." Georgina was stunned. "Why?" She had just moved in yesterday. The bed was barely warm. Ethan's face was impassive. His eyes seemed soft, but they held an undeniable, commanding force. "Go." Georgina's expression shifted slightly. She immediately lowered her gaze. Yes, I understand. She stood up, quickly changed her clothes, and left. On the surface, she showed no hint of anger or dissatisfaction. But the moment she closed the villa's gate behind her, her beautiful face twisted with pure hatred. Why didn't that bitch Anya die out there? If she were dead, the title of Mrs. Hawthorne would be mine, that damn woman. I want to tear her to pieces. Georgina's heart was filled with venom. Her nails dug so deeply into her palms that she didn't feel the pain, her mind consumed by an unstoppable, vicious rage. After a long moment, she took out her phone and furiously typed out a text message. Inside the villa's living room, Ethan picked up the remote from the sofa and turned on the television. Instantly, Anya's flushed face filled the screen. In the video, she was completely naked, her expression wanton, her actions utterly debased. Anya's face went white. The painful memories of being cornered at the press conference, of being interrogated, mocked, and beaten, all came flooding back. "Turn it off," she shrieked, lunging for the remote in Ethan's hand. "Turn it off now." Ethan grabbed her wrist, twisted it, and threw her onto the sofa. Anya had lost all control. She fought desperately for the remote. "Ethan Hawthorne, turn it off, turn it off." Tears streamed down her face without her realizing it. Her eyelashes were wet, her eyes filled with a broken, hopeless despair. She was a picture of pitiable, heart-wrenching beauty. Ethan's eyes darkened. He seized her wrists with immense strength, pinning her down and stopping her struggles. His voice was a cold whisper. "Is Lucas Jenkins yours? Is he?" he demanded again, his gaze chillingly intense. "What if he is?" Anya screamed, her spirit shattered. "Ethan Hawthorne, I want a divorce, I want a divorce." She just wanted to escape this terrifying demon. No, he was worse than a demon. He was the devil himself. A smile, a terrifying one, returned to Ethan's lips. "Don't touch me," Anya screamed. In her struggle, everything on the coffee table crashed to the floor with a loud, shattering clang. "No!" Anya's body went cold, and she began to tremble. All their past intimacy now felt like a series of slaps, striking her dignity over and over again, a pain worse than death. His fingers dug into her cheek with such force that Anya's entire mouth went numb. She couldn't speak. Tears slid from her eyes, soaking her hair and plastering it messily to her face. "You are absolutely disgusting." Anya fell onto the rug. She silently straightened her skirt and spoke in a hoarse voice. "Ethan Hawthorne, if you despise me so much, then let's get a divorce." She picked up the divorce papers and crossed out the $50 million compensation clause. "I don't want the money. Just sign this, delete that video, and we'll call it even. We'll never have anything to do with each other again." Ethan stared at the document, his fingers tightening into a fist. For a long moment, he didn't move. Anya stared at him defiantly. "Ethan Hawthorne, sign it." Ethan's lips curled into a sneer. "Fine, you want me to sign the divorce papers, right? Fine." He agreed verbally, but he made no move to take the papers. Instead, he picked up his phone and took a picture of the television screen. "What are you doing?" Anya panicked, lunging for his phone. "Don't you dare post those pictures." Ethan swung his arm, sending her sprawling to the floor. "If you don't want me to post them, then beg me," he said, looking down on her. "Get on your knees and beg me. Otherwise, I'll release this video immediately." Anya bit her lip, her face deathly pale. "If I beg you, will you let me go? Will you divorce me and let me leave?" Ethan sneered. "Get on your knees and beg me." Anya closed her eyes. She understood now. Ethan was never going to let her go. "I won't beg you." Anya stared at the floor. "You release the video, and I'll release the details of our marriage and your affair with Georgina Croft. I'm already at rock bottom. I have nothing left to fear. Ethan Hawthorne, kill me or torture me, do whatever you want." She took a few steps back, her expression tragic. "I am leaving this place forever. If you want to hold on to this marriage, then keep it, but I will never endure your threats again." Her reputation, her life, her career, she was giving it all up. Let's see what else Ethan Hawthorne could use to threaten her. She turned to leave. "Anya Nightingale," Ethan's voice was frigid with rage. "If you dare walk out of here today, I will make you wish you were dead." Anya didn't stop. She gripped the doorknob. "Ethan Hawthorne, I've already been through hell. What's left to fear?" She pulled the door open and left without a single look back. The moment the main door shut, Ethan's fury erupted. He kicked the coffee table with brutal force, shattering it. "Bitch!" A firestorm of rage surged through him, burning away all reason. He snatched the remote control and hurled it at the television screen. The impact was savage. The screen cracked with a loud pop, flickered a few times, and went black. The vast living room fell into a dead silence. Ethan clenched his fists, his jaw tight. He was so furious he wanted to tear that damn woman to pieces and devour her. Anya returned empty-handed. No divorce and certainly no money. She went back to Lucas's small rented apartment, her hand resting on her lower abdomen, her resolve hardening. For her child, she had to get away from here. It didn't matter if her reputation was ruined. She could change her name and live a quiet, ordinary life in obscurity forever. Having made her decision, Anya immediately started researching cities where she could disappear, a place where no one knew her and no one could find her. Lucas had a job to go to during the day and would only return in the evening. Now that Anya was feeling better, she would sometimes cook dinner and wait for him to come home. He had done so much for her. She couldn't just be a freeloader. She prepared a simple meal, but Lucas was late. He didn't answer his phone, and a growing sense of unease settled in Anya's heart. When she confronted Ethan today, he had said Lucas's name. That meant he had known all along she was hiding with Lucas. And she had just infuriated Ethan. Was he taking his revenge on Lucas now? Ethan showed her no mercy. He would be even more ruthless with Lucas. Anya waited until dawn, but Lucas still didn't come back. She couldn't sit still any longer and rushed out the door in a panic. Lucas had saved her life. She couldn't let him be dragged down with her. In her haste, Anya forgot to wear a hat to cover her face. The moment she stepped out of the apartment complex, a reporter seemingly appeared from nowhere and grabbed her. "Anya Nightingale is here," the reporter shouted. His voice was so loud that people across the street heard it clearly. In an instant, more reporters and a mob of fans rushed out from all directions, surrounding Anya. "You bitch, we finally caught you," the fans were the fastest, and there were even men among them. "You dare to secretly film our goddess, Georgina, bathing. I'm going to beat you to death today, you shameless whore." The man leading the charge had a vicious look on his face. He truly looked like he wanted to kill her. Anya's face turned white. She spun around and ran for her life. But her escape route was quickly blocked. Within seconds, she was completely trapped by the crowd, once again in a desperate situation. Clutching her stomach, Anya was gripped by a terrifying fear. If these people beat her again, she would surely miscarry. "No, I don't want to lose my baby like this." "Bitch, hand over the negatives of Georgina's bath," a male fan yelled, swinging a fist at Anya's face. "Don't you touch her," Lucas's voice roared as he suddenly burst through the crowd. He shoved people aside, wrapped his arms around Anya, and shielded her with all his might. "Get lost, all of you, get lost." Lucas held Anya tight, protecting her from harm. "You're the one who should get lost," the male fan cursed. "You're protecting this bitch, are you her bit on the side? She's a worn-out piece of trash. Are you sick in the head for protecting her?" The fan's words were incredibly foul. "Never seen a woman before. You treat this whore, who's worse than a prostitute, like some kind of treasure? I won't let you talk about her like that." Lucas's eyes were bloodshot. Losing control, he started fighting with the fan. The moment he let go of Anya, someone grabbed her hair and slammed her to the ground. Get her fists and feet rained down on her mercilessly. "Leave her alone." Lucas quickly turned back and threw himself on top of Anya, taking all the blows for her. "Adulterous pair," the fans screamed, their attacks becoming even more vicious, beating the two of them as if to kill. Lucas held Anya tightly, ensuring she wasn't harmed, but his own face grew pale as blood trickled from the corner of his mouth. "You have to go, don't worry about me." Anya's eyes filled with tears. "Go, just leave me." Lucas just held her tighter, refusing to let go. Anya started to cry. "Lucas, don't do this. I can never repay you. Please just go, I'm begging you." Lucas still shook his head. More blood flowed from his lips, staining the shoulder of Anya's shirt. "The police are here," someone shouted. The crowd quickly began to disperse, but not before kicking Lucas one last time. Anya quickly pushed the semi-conscious Lucas off her and cradled him in her arms, trying to protect him. But in the chaos, a cold, white glint flashed through the air. It was a dagger aimed straight for Anya's back. "Nia!" Lucas let out a hoarse, desperate cry. He spun around, taking the blade meant for Anya. The dagger plunged into Lucas's abdomen with a sickening squelch. Crimson blood sprayed out. "What do you think you're doing?" A police officer charged forward. The man holding the dagger quickly pulled it out, adjusted his baseball cap, and vanished into the fleeing crowd. Anya's face was drained of all color. She pressed her hands against his bleeding abdomen, babbling incoherently, "Are you okay? You have to be okay." The police dispersed the violent fans and knelt beside Anya, using their radio to call for an ambulance. The wound in Lucas's stomach was bleeding profusely, staining Anya's hands red. "Lucas, you can't die." Anya's mind was a complete blank. She had lost all composure. The ambulance finally arrived and rushed him to the hospital. Massive internal bleeding. "He needs surgery immediately," a doctor said with a grim, serious face. "Family members, please go pay the fees so we can arrange the operation." Anya dazedly ran to the payment counter, pulling out all her bank cards to handle the paperwork. But every single one of her cards was frozen. Frozen? How is that possible? Anya couldn't believe it. They had been working just a few days ago. "You must have made a mistake. Please try swiping them again." "I'm sorry, they really aren't working," the admitting nurse said. "Do you have any other cards? Or you can pay with cash." Anya's blood-stained fingers trembled. "I don't have any other cards." Was this Ethan's doing? And the man who just tried to kill me, did Ethan send him too? Anya's mind was in turmoil. A cold sweat broke out on her forehead, and she felt a chill run through her body. The nurse said, "If you can't make the payment, we can't proceed with the surgery." "No," Anya practically screamed. "Without the surgery, Lucas will die, but you don't have the money to pay for it," the nurse replied. Anya had all her cards with her. If they didn't work, she had no other way to get the money. But Lucas needed surgery right now. "I'm begging you," Anya dropped to her knees with a thud. She had no other options. "Please, I'm begging you, operate on him first. I'll pay the money later, just save him, please." "Miss, please don't do this," the nurse tried to pull her up. "Begging us won't help, you have to pay before we can operate. Those are the rules." Money, but where could she get money? In her confusion and despair, Ethan Hawthorne's name surfaced again. He was the only one. Anya took off all the cash and jewelry she had on her. "I'll use these to pay. Please, you have to save his life. Don't let him die." "I'll go get the money right now." The nurse sighed. "We'll do our best. Please hurry back." "Okay," Anya said quickly. "I'll go get the money right away. Even if she had to die, she would get the money. Lucas could not lose his life because of her." Wiping the tears from her face, Anya ran out of the hospital without stopping. She hailed a cab and sped directly toward Ethan Hawthorne's villa. The entire ride, Anya couldn't stop trembling. She was terrified that Lucas would die because of her. She urged the driver to go faster several times, and the car finally sped to a stop outside Ethan's villa. "Open the door," Anya jumped out of the car and rushed to the gate, pounding on it with all her might. "Ethan Hawthorne, open the door," she yelled for a long time, but there was no response from inside. Anya was frantic, wishing she could just smash the gate down. "Ethan Hawthorne, open the damn door," she screamed, her voice raw. She pounded until her palms were red, almost bleeding. "Open up, finally." There was a sound from the large metal gate. Anya couldn't wait. She pushed the gate open with all her strength. "Ethan Hawthorne," the gate swung open slowly, but the person standing behind it was not Ethan. It was Georgina Croft. Anya froze for a moment. "Where's Ethan? Where is he?" She just wanted to find Ethan, but Georgina's lips curled into a malicious smile. "He's not here." "Anya Nightingale, you seem to be in a real hurry to find him. Is something wrong?" Anya looked at Georgina's treacherous face and suddenly remembered what those enraged male fans had been shouting about a video of Georgina bathing. It all clicked. "You framed me," Georgina played dumb. "Framed you? Are you talking about you secretly filming me in the bath? How is that framing? It's the truth. You've damaged my reputation. Ethan and I are preparing to sue you." "You're lying," Anya clenched her fists. "I never filmed anything of yours." Georgina examined her nails, her tone light and dismissive. "Anya Nightingale, you're looking for Ethan for money, aren't you?" Anya gritted her teeth. "How did you know?" Georgina laughed. "It doesn't matter how I know, but I can give you money. Anya Nightingale, do you want it?" Her ill intentions were obvious. Anya didn't want to fall into her trap. She just ground out the words, "Where is Ethan?" "I need to see him," Georgina pouted. "I don't know, and I wouldn't tell you if I did. If you don't want my help, then fine." With that, she slammed the gate shut. Anya's nerves were stretched taut. She turned and walked quickly away. If Ethan wasn't at home, he must be at the company. She would go to his company. She had only taken a few steps when she saw a large, aggressive group of male fans rushing toward her. There she is. She actually came to our goddess's house to threaten her. The man in the lead had a vicious scar above his eyebrow. He was clearly bad news. "You despicable bitch, I'm going to cut you down today." Anya's face went white with terror. She instinctively backed away, but behind her was only the villa. Unless she could get back inside, there was no chance of escape. She was going to die at their hands. If Lucas hadn't taken that knife for her earlier, she'd already be dead. Backing up, Anya's back hit the metal gate. "You're not getting away. Bitch, you're going to pay for all the filthy things you've done today." The mob of fans was almost upon her. Just then, the gate behind her cracked open. On pure instinct, Anya shoved it open and slipped inside. As soon as she closed the gate, Ethan Hawthorne's icy voice sounded right behind her. "Anya Nightingale, you dare to come back?" Anya's body went rigid. Her fingers gripped the gate as she slowly, painfully, turned her head. Ethan was standing at the top of the spiral staircase, a silk robe loosely draped over his tall, slender frame, its front open. He had clearly just woken up. So he was home all along. Georgina was sitting on the sofa. With a look of terror, she suddenly shrieked. "Nia, please stop threatening me. You want money? I'll give it to you. I'll give you whatever you want, just please. Don't release my bath photos." Anya slowly released her grip on the gate. Her expression was flat, devoid of life or emotion. "Fine, Georgina, give me $1 million right now." She didn't care anymore. Whether it was a frame-up or an act, none of it mattered. She needed money to save Lucas's life. Georgina fumbled with her phone, her hands shaking, looking every bit the terrified victim. "I'll transfer it to you right now." But Ethan walked over to Georgina's side and placed a hand over hers, stopping her. "Don't be afraid, I'm here," he said, his voice gentle and full of affection. "I'll protect you. That bitch won't hurt you." Anya's heart clenched, a pain so sharp it made her eyes burn. "Where are the negatives?" Ethan's gaze fell on Anya, cold and chilling. Anya didn't have any negatives. She had been completely framed. "Give me the money," she said, offering no explanation. It was pointless. Ethan would never believe her. "Ethan Hawthorne, give me $1 million. "No, 500,000 will do. I'll give you everything right away." Ethan stared at her coldly. "Anya Nightingale, are you threatening me?" Anya squeezed her eyes shut, holding back a surge of tears. "Yes, I'm threatening you. So give me the money." Outside the villa's gate, the enraged fans had reached the door and were pounding on it, creating a chaotic scene. Security guards rushed over, shouting at them to back off. Ethan glanced toward the gate, and a cruel smile spread across his grim face. "Anya Nightingale, what do you think would happen if I stripped you naked and threw you outside?" Stripped naked and thrown out. She would be humiliated and then tortured to death. Anya couldn't even imagine a scene more terrifying than hell itself. A fine tremor ran through her body, but Lucas was still waiting for her at the hospital. She couldn't back down. "Ethan Hawthorne, give me the money or we'll go down together." Ethan's brow furrowed sharply. He crossed the room in 2 strides, grabbed her by the neck and slammed her against the wall. His voice was ice. "Anya Nightingale, what right do you have to negotiate with me? You're nothing but a fucking bitch. I could kill you at any moment." Anya clawed at the powerful hand on her throat, her eyes locked on Ethan's. She forced out the words, "Even a cornered dog will bite back. Ethan Hawthorne, if you insist on pushing me this far, then even if I die, I'll take you with me." Ethan laughed, his fingers slowly tightening, causing Anya's face to flush a deep red. "You really won't give up until you're at death's door, will you?" With that, he began to tear at her clothes. Anya struggled violently, twisting her body. The lack of air made her face turn purple, her eyes nearly rolling back in her head. "Ethan," Georgina rushed over and grabbed his arm. "Don't do this. She still has the negatives of me bathing. She just threatened me, said if I don't give her the money on time, the videos will be sent out automatically. Then, every netizen will see my body." Georgina's face was pale, as if she were the one being threatened. "It's only 500,000 anyway, and she wants the money to save Lucas Jenkins's life. I'm willing to give it to her to make this whole thing go away." Ethan's face darkened instantly. He stared hard at Anya. "You want money to save Lucas?" Anya was being choked so hard she couldn't speak. Georgina kept going. "Ethan, just let it go. Help Anya this one time." Ethan's jaw tightened. After a few seconds, he abruptly let go of Anya. Fine, Anya Nightingale, you want money, I can give it to you. I'll give you 1 million. Anya collapsed to the floor, clutching her throat and coughing violently. You filmed Georgina's bath video, right? Now you're going to film one for me. He looked down at her, his voice devoid of any emotion. You will live stream yourself bathing in front of everyone. When you're done, I'll give you the money. Anya kept her head down, unable to speak. Did you hear what I said? Ethan demanded impatiently. Anya Nightingale, answer me. Anya's fingers dug into the floor. She squeezed her eyes shut, then used the wall to slowly pull herself to her feet. The living room fell into a brief, dead silence. A moment later, Anya raised her hands and began to unbutton her shirt. I agree, she said, her face ashen, like a corpse. I'll live stream myself bathing. I'll do anything you want, as long as you give me the money. Ethan took a deep breath, then swung his hand and slapped her hard across the face. The blow snapped her head to the side, making her ears ring and her vision blur. Anya Nightingale, have you no shame? Anya expressionlessly wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth and continued to take off her pants. I am shameless, I just want the money. Ethan was suddenly at a loss for words. He tortured her, provoked her, and watched her despair, savoring the thrill of revenge. But now that Anya no longer fought back, no longer reacted, all the torment seemed to have lost its pleasure. Looking at the humble, submissive Anya, Ethan felt no joy in his revenge, only disgust. So much disgust, he couldn't stand the sight of her for another second. Get out, Anya Nightingale, get the hell out. Just on the other side of the door, the enraged fans were still lingering. If she went out now, she was as good as dead. I'm not leaving, aren't you going to give me money? Anya's body was tense. I'm not leaving until I get the money. Ethan's face was filled with disgust and impatience. I've changed my mind, Anya Nightingale. I don't want to give you a single cent now. Are you going to get out or not? His voice was laced with a threat. Anya gritted her teeth, her voice stubborn. Give me the money, and then I'll get out. Money, money, money. All this woman talked about was money. Did she care that much about Lucas Jenkins? Ethan strode forward and grabbed Anya by the hair. I told you to get out. He started dragging her toward the door. No, Anya struggled fiercely. If she went out, not only would she not get the money, but she would also lose her life. She couldn't go out. Get out. Anya Nightingale, you make me sick. Ethan pulled her forcefully. A bitch like you should just die outside. Let those people out there finish you off. Anya clung to the wall, panicked and broken. In a moment of uncontrolled desperation, she shrieked, I'm pregnant, Ethan Hawthorne. I'm carrying your child. What did you say? Ethan's movement stopped abruptly. Beside them, Georgina's face changed instantly. Anya gripped Ethan's arm, her body giving out. She slid weakly to the floor, sobbing, I'm pregnant. Ethan Hawthorne, it's your child. Mine? Ethan's expression was unreadable as he stared down at Anya. If it's really mine, why didn't you say so from the beginning? You've been with Lucas Jenkins for so long. Who knows whose child it really is? Anya Nightingale. Don't try to use a baby to trick me, Anya cried, trying to explain. It's really yours, I'm not lying. Ethan's expression grew even more vicious. Then get rid of it. Anya Nightingale, you are dirty and cheap. You are not worthy of carrying my child. Anya's sobs stopped instantly. What did you say? This is your own flesh and blood. Ethan stared at her for a moment, then suddenly laughed. No, I should let you give birth to it. Before Anya could feel a glimmer of hope, she heard Ethan's next brutal words. I'll let you give birth to it, and then I'll make you watch with your own eyes as I kill this bastard just like how you killed my mother. A life for a life, Anya Nightingale. This is what you owe me. With that, Ethan dragged Anya toward a nearby storage room. From now on, you will stay in here and carry this child. And then, you will personally watch as the bastard in your belly dies right in front of you. He shoved Anya inside and slammed the door, the lock clicking shut with a heavy thud. No, let me out. Anya threw herself against the door. Let me out, she was trapped. What about Lucas? Ethan Hawthorne, you can't do this, let me out or I'll kill myself. It was the last threat Anya could think of. Then go ahead and die. Ethan was completely unmoved. Anya Nightingale, go on, kill yourself. Anya slumped powerlessly to the floor, unable to even cry anymore. The storage room had no windows, only a sliver of light coming from under the door. She had no phone, no way to contact the outside world. She couldn't even see Lucas one last time. In the end, she had gotten him killed. Anya covered her face, trapped in absolute despair, her heart dead within her. She didn't know what to do. There wasn't even a rope in this room. She couldn't even die. It was silent outside. She drifted in a daze, losing all track of time. Finally, she heard footsteps outside the door. The door opened. Standing in the doorway was Georgina. Anya had been sitting on the floor for so long that her legs were numb. She couldn't even stand up. "Do you want to save Lucas Jenkins?" Georgina crouched down, her smile vicious. "Agree to one condition, and I'll help you pay the hospital so Lucas can have his surgery." "What condition?" Anya asked urgently. "Do you agree?" Georgina didn't state the condition, she just asked. Anya had no choice. She could only nod. I agree to anything." "Good." Georgina suddenly produced a dagger and placed it in front of Anya. "Then right now, you're going to cut open your own stomach and dig out that little bastard you're carrying." Anya's body went rigid. "What?" Georgina pointed at the dagger. "I said, dig the baby out of your stomach. If you want to save Lucas Jenkins, you have to pay a price, right? But the baby is innocent." Anya's tone softened into a plea. "Please choose another way. Spare my child. Anything else?" "Anya Nightingale, what I want is the life of that bastard in your belly." Georgina's eyes were venomous. "If you don't do as I say right now, I'm leaving. I heard that Lucas Jenkins has already been issued a critical condition notice. He doesn't have much time left." Anya stared at the dagger, her fingers trembling, but she didn't dare pick it up. To cut open her own stomach? She didn't have that kind of courage. Georgina examined her nails. "Anya Nightingale, if you don't have the guts, then forget it. Even if Lucas Jenkins dies, he deserved it for helping a heartless bitch like you." She stood up, her expression cruel. "Don't worry, after Lucas dies, I'll make sure to donate his body to a medical school for dissection. That way, he'll be cut open and have a much more valuable death," Georgina said, turning to leave. "Wait," Anya quickly grabbed her. "You're not lying to me. If I dig out the baby myself, you'll save Lucas." Georgina crouched down again and deliberately showed Anya her phone screen. It was a payment app, with the hospital listed as the recipient. "The moment you stick that knife into your own body, I'll transfer the money. Once the hospital receives it, they can arrange the surgery for Lucas." She smiled. "So do you agree?" Anya squeezed her eyes shut and trembled. "I agree." She gripped the dagger and pressed it against her abdomen. The tip of the blade pierced her skin, and pain spread through her. Her survival instinct made her hesitate. She had been prepared to die, but taking her own life required immense courage, and besides, she had her child. As Anya hesitated, Georgina lost her patience. She grabbed Anya's wrist and shoved it downward. The sharp blade plunged into her lower abdomen. Blood gushed out, staining the floor red. "There, the knife's in. Now it's time to dig out that bastard in your belly," Georgina said with a wide, cruel smile. "Go on, Anya, dig." Pain. Anya's hand holding the dagger trembled uncontrollably. The slightest movement of the blade sent excruciating pain through her. She couldn't find the strength. Georgina grabbed her fingers and guided the dagger, twisting it left and right inside her abdomen. More and more blood poured out, spreading across the floor like a grotesque flower. "Anya Nightingale, do you think we've turned that unformed little bastard of yours into mincemeat yet?" Georgina watched the pool of blood with delight. "Or did it just dissolve into blood and seep into the floor? How tragic. That's what you call not even having a proper burial." After twisting the knife to her satisfaction, Georgina pulled her hand away and leisurely wiped the blood on Anya's clothes. Anya let go of the dagger and tried to grab Georgina, but she deftly dodged her. "The money." Anya gasped, lying on the floor. The rapid blood loss was draining her strength and warmth. "Georgina, you promised to transfer the money to the hospital." I know. I'm transferring it now," Georgina said dismissively. Ding the sound of a successful transfer. "It's done," Georgina said with a smirk. "Here, I'll let you see the confirmation." She showed her phone screen to Anya. It clearly read, "Transfer successful, $10. $10? Anya was stunned. "What do you mean? Did you make a mistake?" "A mistake?" Georgina raised an eyebrow and pretended to check her phone. "Nope, it's correct. $10, not enough for surgery, huh? Well, you could always stab yourself again." Her tone was utterly contemptuous, as if the whole thing had been a harmless little joke. Anya clutched her stomach, feeling the life draining out of her. "Georgina, you can't trick me like this." She crawled toward Georgina, trying to grab her. Georgina stepped back in disgust and giggled. Anya Nightingale, since we've come this far, I might as well just tell you. Lucas Jenkins, he was already dead. The whole deal. I was just kidding, ha ha ha, Georgina left, laughing, leaving Anya to bleed to death on the floor with a gaping wound in her stomach. Lucas was already dead? No, it couldn't be. Anya refused to believe it. Saving Lucas was the only reason she had held on this long. If Lucas was already dead, then everything she had just endured was meaningless. Clutching the wound in her abdomen, Anya struggled to her feet. The massive blood loss made her dizzy, her thoughts hazy and disjointed. In a delirious state, she found herself wanting to call Ethan Hawthorne for help. Her body and mind seemed to be disconnected. She stumbled to the sofa, leaving a trail of blood, grabbed the landline, and dialed the number she knew by heart. Perhaps because it was the house phone, Ethan answered quickly. "Ethan, help me, I'm dying," Anya pleaded, her voice filled with helpless despair. "Anya Nightingale, you got out." Ethan's voice was sharp. "I'm going to die," Anya raised her voice. "Please, will you save me? I'm begging you." There was a few seconds of silence on Ethan's end. Then, Anya heard him take an impatient breath. "How many times do I have to tell you? If you're going to die, die somewhere far away." With that, he slammed the phone down. Only the cold, monotonous dial tone remained. Anya swayed, her vision going black. She was about to pass out. She really never learned. To think that man would save her. It was impossible. Die somewhere far away. Those words echoed in Anya's mind as she staggered out of the villa. The wound in her abdomen bled relentlessly, the blood running down her slender body and leaving a trail of gruesome, crimson footprints on the floor. Where should she go to die? As Anya walked, tears streamed down her face uncontrollably. In the end, she hadn't been able to save Lucas, nor could she protect her innocent, unborn child. Covered in blood, Anya attracted the attention of passersby, but seeing her death-like state, no one dared to get close. They all shied away, afraid of getting involved in some trouble. Someone with sharp eyes recognized her as Anya Nightingale, the actress at the center of the recent scandals involving the explicit video and the alleged filming of a colleague. They quickly pulled out their phones, taking pictures and recording videos, and posted them online. These gruesome, blood-soaked photos and videos quickly became the top story. Netizens were shocked, speculating on the reason for Anya's condition. Was it revenge or suicide? Either way, it looked like Anya Nightingale was done for. Her body grew colder and colder. Her vision darkened, and she felt lightheaded, her senses blurring. She couldn't hold on much longer. Without realizing it, she had wandered to a seaside cliff. Below, the vast ocean churned with violent waves. Dying in the sea seemed like a fitting end. She stood teetering on the edge of the cliff. The fierce sea wind whipped around her, making her look like a fragile autumn leaf, ready to be swept into the abyss at any moment. Anya Nightingale, a reporter, drawn by the online headlines, had finally arrived. "Don't jump yet, tell us why you're doing this. Is it a suicide out of guilt?" The reason? Anya's consciousness was fading. She could no longer think clearly. She stood at the cliff's edge and slowly turned her head. The wind blew her soft, dark hair across her face. Her thin, delicate features were a mask of despair and pallor, like a puppet whose soul had been stolen. "Ethan Hawthorne, you always wanted me to die," she murmured, her voice lost in the wind. The reporter couldn't hear her. As he rushed forward, he only caught the last part of her sentence. "I will do as you wish. And I only wish that from now on, for all of lifetimes to come, we will never meet again." With those words, she threw herself into the sea. Anya Nightingale, the reporter, tried to grab her, but he was holding a camera and couldn't move fast enough. He could only watch helplessly as Anya plummeted into the ocean and was instantly swallowed by the waves. A-list actress Anya Nightingale had committed suicide by jumping into the sea. A reporter released the first-hand video of the event, which clearly documented the entire scene. Anya, covered in blood and with a face full of despair, falling into the ocean. The video's release caused a massive storm online. Everyone was speculating about why Anya Nightingale would kill herself and why she was covered in blood. Had she killed someone and was now committing suicide out of guilt? Or had she been attacked and driven to a dead end? The online buzz was relentless, but on the other side of town, Ethan Hawthorne was in a meeting. The conference room door was suddenly pushed open. His secretary stood in the doorway, a complicated expression on his face. "Sir, something has happened." Ethan was still looking at the documents in his hand. Without looking up, he said, "Get out, I'm in a meeting." The secretary didn't leave. He hesitated, then repeated, "Sir, something has really happened." Ethan lifted his dark, piercing eyes and stared coldly at the secretary. "I said, get out." The secretary opened his mouth, but under the weight of Ethan's overpowering presence, he fearfully retreated. Ethan continued the meeting, his face cold as he flipped through the documents. The meeting ended 3 hours later. As he walked out of the conference room, he saw the secretary still waiting by the door. The man quickly approached him, repeating the same words, "Sir, something major has happened." Ethan walked past him toward his office, casually asking, "What is it?" The secretary hurried after him, lowering his voice. "Miss Nightingale. She committed suicide." Ethan's step stopped abruptly. He turned his head, his gaze fierce as he stared at the secretary. "What did you say?" The secretary's face was pale, sweat beading on his forehead. "Miss Nightingale, she jumped into the sea. It's all over the news. There's even a video of it online." Ethan was silent for a long moment, his expression dark and terrifying. The secretary gritted his teeth, held out his phone, and played the video, which had already shot to the top of every chart. The footage was shaky but clear. Anya's thin, fragile body swayed unsteadily at the edge of the sea. Her abdomen, her entire lower body, was covered in blood. She looked like a butterfly that had escaped from a bloody hell, about to fall at any moment. Anya stared at the camera with a deathly pale face, murmuring something. The wind muffled her words into a low whine until the camera zoomed in and her final words became clear. "I will do as you wish. And I only wish that from now on, for all of lifetimes to come, we will never meet again." With that, she turned and, without a moment's hesitation, jumped. The camera shook violently as the reporter shouted her name and rushed to the edge, capturing the final image of Anya being swallowed by the waves. Ethan stared at the phone. The hand at his side had unconsciously clenched into a tight fist. She actually went and died? When did this happen? Ethan asked, his voice hoarse and cold, sending a shiver down the spine. The secretary stammered, "Over 3 hours ago." Ethan suddenly kicked out, sending the secretary sprawling to the floor. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" The secretary clutched his stomach, speechless. It was Ethan himself who had told him not to speak. Ethan took a deep breath and squeezed his eyes shut. Anya's final words echoed in his mind. "For all of lifetimes to come, we will never meet again." He started walking, striding quickly out of the company as he made a call. "Get to the coast immediately and pull that bitch Anya Nightingale out of the water." He got into his car and slammed the accelerator to the floor. The car shot forward like a rocket, racing toward the cliff where Anya had jumped. There was a sparse patch of woods nearby. The moment Ethan got out of his car, he saw the glaring bloodstains on the side of the road, a dotted trail leading into the woods, all the way to the edge of the cliff. The area had been cordoned off. A crowd of reporters and onlookers had gathered, still endlessly debating the cause of Anya's death. "She must have died for love. Did you hear her last words in the video? Never meet again for all of lifetimes to come. She must have suffered some deep emotional trauma. Tusk, she jumped into the sea. She must have been abandoned, right?" A bystander speculated. "Didn't that disgusting video of her come out a few days ago? She was probably sullied by someone, and her lover got disgusted. Hey, do you think her lover was the one who stabbed her in the stomach? It's possible." Ethan's face was grim. He pushed past the gossiping crowd and walked to the scene. The team he had called had already arrived and were preparing to begin the search. "Clear the area. Get every single person out of here." Ethan's words were cold and laced with suppressed fury. His men followed his orders and began to disperse the onlookers. The reporters refused to leave, shouting, "The public has a right to know the truth, you can't just kick us out." Ethan turned his head, his gaze fierce and predatory as he stared at the reporter who had spoken. "You want to know the truth?" He walked toward the reporter, his presence overwhelmingly intimidating. The reporter couldn't withstand his aura and stumbled backward. "She fell into the sea. If you want to find the truth, you can go find it in the water for me." Ethan's words made the reporter's legs turn to jelly. He didn't dare say another word. He quickly apologized and scurried away. The cliff and the surrounding woods were finally empty and quiet, with only the sound of the fierce sea wind blowing. The recovery team searched the entire coastline near the cliff meticulously, but they found nothing. The wind was strong, the waves crashed violently, and the sea churned. If a person fell in, there was no telling where the relentless currents would take them. Moreover, 4 hours had passed since she jumped. Logically, it was impossible to find her now. One of the team members bravely went to tell Ethan the truth and was met with a furious kick that sent him tumbling into the sea. "I don't care how long it takes, and I don't care about your logic. That woman, I want to see her, dead or alive." The search continued late into the night. As darkness fell, the surface of the sea became a black void, making it impossible to continue the operation. But Ethan didn't give the order to stop, so no one dared to. "Sir," the secretary cautiously approached Ethan from behind and spoke softly. "The housekeeper from your home just called?" Ethan frowned, his impatience evident as he spat out a single word. "Speak," the secretary lowered his head. "She said, the floor at the house is covered in blood. It's a horrific scene. She wanted to know if she should call the police." Ethan's eyes suddenly turned cold. He said in a hoarse voice, "Continue the search. I'm going back." At the villa, the housekeeper who came for her regular cleaning was standing far off to the side. When she saw Ethan return, she rushed over. "As soon as I opened the door, I saw all this blood. It's everywhere, from the storage room to the sofa, even on the landline." Ethan didn't respond. His dark eyes were now shot through with blood vessels. There were drops of blood at the entrance, too. He followed the trail of blood, step by step, toward the storage room. That was where the blood was thickest. A blood-stained dagger lay in the middle of the pool of blood. The gruesome sight of the dried, blackened blood made Ethan's own eyes turn red. "Who opened the door for her? Who gave her the knife?" he demanded of the housekeeper, his voice a low, chilling whisper. "I don't know." The housekeeper was bewildered and terrified. "When I left, the door was locked tight. I really don't know anything." Ethan pressed his fingers to his temples and closed his eyes, trying to dispel the crimson haze from his vision. "Get out," he ordered. "Get out of my sight." The housekeeper didn't dare linger and fled. Ethan stood in place for several minutes before turning to his silent, cowering secretary. "Get people in here. I want this house searched from top to bottom. I want to know who was responsible for the wound in Anya Nightingale's stomach." The secretary nodded and immediately relayed the orders. He glanced at Ethan's face and hesitated. "Sir, do you think Miss Nightingale could have really committed suicide?" Ethan shot back without thinking. Impossible, his fists were clenched. In his mind, he remembered the last call for help from that woman. She had cried and begged him to save her. But he hadn't saved her. Ethan began to search frantically for any trace of Anya Nightingale. Just then, Georgina Croft walked in, her high heels clicking on the floor. Ethan looked up at the sound, his bloodshot eyes fixing on her. "Ethan, she's already dead." Georgina avoided his gaze and stepped forward, placing a hand on his shoulder. She whispered, "Isn't this what you wanted?" "Get out." Ethan's pupils contracted. He shoved Georgina away with violent force. Georgina fell to the floor, looking up at him with a wounded expression. "Pull up the security footage. All of it," Ethan ordered, not even sparing her a glance. He waved his arm, his voice a roar. "I need to know who did this." Georgina got to her feet and crossed her arms, a faint smile playing on her lips as she stood behind him. The butler brought up all the external security footage from the villa. Ethan watched it over and over again, meticulously, afraid of missing a single detail. But no matter how many times he watched, the only thing he saw was Anya dragging her wounded body away. Suddenly, a pair of hands gently rested on his head. Slender fingers began to massage his temples. Ethan closed his eyes, wanting just a moment of rest. But a few seconds later, his eyes snapped open. He grabbed the hands that were still massaging him and pulled. "Ah!" With a cry, a woman's slender body fell into his lap. The woman was startled for a moment, then buried her head in his chest. "Who let you in?" Ethan's voice was laced with exhaustion. "Georgina." Georgina looked up at him, then buried her head in his chest again, cooing, "Ethan, you promised you would marry me." A wave of disgust washed over Ethan. "Wait until I've sorted this out," he said, pushing her away. "No," Georgina whined, shifting her alluring body on his lap. "I've seen the news 1,000 times. Since she's already dead, you should just..." Before Georgina could finish, Ethan shoved her forcefully. Georgina hadn't even had a chance to leave a trace of warmth in his arms. She landed on the floor and asked in a tearful voice, "Ethan, what are you doing?" "Stop bothering me." Ethan sat up straight and went back to watching the footage. Anya Nightingale was my lawfully wedded wife, after all. I can't just ignore this. No, Georgina was relentless. She knelt on the floor, clutching his clothes. Ethan, don't forget, she was the one who tried to frame me. The negatives of my bath are still. Ethan's brow furrowed, and he slapped her across the face. Georgina's head snapped to the side. Blood trickled from the corner of her mouth, and her eyes widened in disbelief. She had thought that once Anya was dead, it would all be over. Ethan would be hers. She would be his lawfully wedded wife. Don't think I don't know what you've been up to, Ethan said coldly. She's missing now, and I don't want to deal with you. You'd better disappear from my sight. Georgina was stunned. Tears streamed down her face as she looked at Ethan, refusing to give up. Why? His attitude had been so resolute before. Why was he going crazy over her now? Without looking back, Ethan ordered the staff to drag her out. In the dark room, the computer screen cast a faint blue light. Ethan propped his head up, exhausted. He closed his eyes and prayed. The moment he learned Anya had jumped, he had realized that in their 2 years of marriage, he had developed feelings for her. Ethan picked up the dagger from the table. It was still stained with Anya's blood. Though it had oxidized and turned black, it seemed to still hold the residual warmth of her body. She's not dead. She can't be dead. She's my woman. She can't die without my permission. Ethan's mind was a chaotic mess. Anya's pleas for help on the phone echoed in his ears. Save me, please, save me. He didn't dare close his eyes. It was as if the moment he did, he would see Anya clutching her wound, her face pale, crawling on the floor. He would see the despair in her eyes, see the disappointment when he refused to save her, and even the resentful gaze of their unborn child. The thought of these images sent a sharp, stabbing pain through Ethan's heart. In the following days, Ethan canceled all his appointments and dedicated himself completely to finding Anya. The slightest hint of a clue sent him into a frenzy of searching. Every time his assistant brought him food, he would see Ethan's haggard appearance. He wanted to intervene but didn't dare. A month passed. Anya's death was officially announced. The case was closed as a suicide, and the search for her body was called off. Ethan's work gradually returned to normal, but he never gave up the search. He begged the police to conduct a more thorough investigation, but he was repeatedly denied. Faced with the indifference of the media and the police, he could only endure it. Wasn't this just like him, cruelly refusing Anya when she had begged for his help? Ethan let out a cold, self-deprecating laugh and typed a line on his computer. Anya Nightingale, you must be alive. The entertainment industry was abuzz with rumors that Anya Nightingale had died for love. Every time Ethan saw a news story about Anya, he would pay close attention. By now, he couldn't even sort out his own feelings. He didn't understand why he cared so much about whether Anya was alive or dead. He was supposed to hate her. But a flicker of compassion mixed with his overwhelming resentment urged him to find her. In his mind, the Anya who had died for love was just escaping his torment. But he couldn't understand why she would call him for help right before she died. Ethan pressed his fingers to his forehead, trying to stop himself from thinking about her. The person who had used despicable means to cause his mother's death could not be forgiven so easily. Although the search for Anya had yielded no clues and the security footage had been wiped clean, when he ruled out all other possibilities, there was only one person with the power to do it. Georgina Croft. Anya's disappearance had already made Ethan's personality dark and erratic. Now, it was getting worse. While working, Ethan never stopped searching for clues about Anya. He started by investigating Georgina. Unexpectedly, within a few days, he found some scattered pieces of information. It turned out there was something suspicious about his mother's death. Ethan's fists clenched. Could it be that I've wronged Anya all this time? He desperately tried to find more clues, but the trail went cold time and time again, leaving him with nothing but despair. Ethan tried to find his mother's attending physician, only to discover that the doctor had committed suicide shortly after the failed surgery. The only lead was gone. He suddenly hated himself for what he had done. He had pushed an innocent person to the brink and then mocked her for dying to escape him. For the sake of his sanity, Ethan suppressed all his questions and tried to live his life as usual. A few years later, his company hosted a gala, inviting many A-list celebrities, as well as some B-list newcomers to make the veterans shine. Ethan disliked such events and hid in a dark corner, drinking alone. A waiter approached him, handed him a single rose, and told him someone was waiting for him in a hotel room. With nothing better to do, Ethan decided it was a good way to kill some time. He stood up, straightened his suit, snapped the stem of the rose, and tucked it into his breast pocket before striding toward the hotel room. Well, if it isn't Mr. Hawthorne. The moment he opened the door, the smell of alcohol hit him. A portly man swayed in front of him. "Nia, get Mr. Hawthorne a drink," the man called out. "Mr. Young, you're too kind." Ethan frowned, about to leave, when his arm was suddenly wrapped in something soft and smooth. Ethan instinctively grabbed it and pulled hard. Ah, a woman fell into his arms. "Not so fast, Mr. Hawthorne." The woman's fingers traced the lines of his suit on his chest. A fire of irritation flared in Ethan's chest. Then, as if suddenly realizing something, Ethan forcefully pushed the woman away and coldly brushed off his suit. Mr. Young's face paled when he saw the woman pushed back. He scolded, "Nia, what do you think you're doing?" Nia didn't answer. She just lifted her head and looked at Ethan with a dazed expression. It was only then that Ethan saw her face clearly. He froze in place. By the time he snapped out of it, Nia's mesmerizing eyes were brimming with tears. This woman looked strikingly similar to Anya Nightingale, only thinner. A sharp pain shot through Ethan's heart. He instinctively reached out to wipe away her tears. Nia turned her head away. His hand hung in the air, suddenly feeling awkward and out of place. The portly man, Mr. Young, waddled over to Ethan, offered him a drink with an apologetic smile, and began to explain Nia's background. After some small talk, only Ethan and Nia were left in the room. "What, no reaction?" Ethan grabbed Nia's hand and pinned her against the wall. "If you want to climb the ladder, you'd better start pleasing your benefactor." After everything was ready, Nia shifted on top of Ethan and leaned down to kiss his lips. It was a sleepless night. Nia woke up the next afternoon. After getting dressed and having breakfast, Ethan prepared to leave. He glanced at Nia, who was walking with a slight limp, clearly exhausted from the previous night. Ethan strode over, scooped her up in his arms, and she fell into his embrace. Nia was startled for a moment, then obediently rested her head on his chest. Ethan drove them back to his home, with Nia sleeping soundly beside him. After parking, Ethan went around to the passenger's side, lifted the sleeping Nia out, draped his jacket over her, and strode into the villa. As the door opened, Ethan glanced down and saw a pair of high heels by the entrance. He frowned and slammed the door shut. "Ethan," Georgina's voice drifted down from upstairs. The nearby butler was trembling. Georgina was a person Ethan had explicitly forbidden from entering the villa, but they didn't dare offend her either. Georgina ran down the stairs in a white dress, about to throw herself into Ethan's arms when she noticed Nia in his embrace. She didn't get a good look at first. She stopped in her tracks, her finger trembling as she pointed at the woman. "Georgina," Ethan gritted his teeth, his face a mask of disgust. "What are you doing here? Who let you in?" The butler's face went white. Georgina didn't answer Ethan's question. Her eyes were glued to Nia. How is she not dead?" Her voice trembled, laced with a hint of fear. Ethan looked at Georgina and said coldly, "Who's dead? Who did you want to be dead, Miss Croft, that you've mistaken Nia for them?" Hearing this, Georgina collapsed to the floor and scrambled backward. "Get up," Ethan said with contempt. "My floor doesn't need you to clean it." Georgina looked at Ethan in shock, then carefully got to her feet and ran out without even changing her shoes. Nia had been awake the whole time, pretending to be asleep, and had heard everything. Ethan carried Nia into the bedroom, instructed the staff to take care of her, and then left. After he was gone, Nia opened her eyes and looked around. A servant knocked gently and entered. Nia turned and gave them a smile. The servants were stunned by her smile. Not only did this girl look like the late madam, but her smile was so similar too. In the past, whenever the servants came to attend to Anya, she would always give them a smile, no matter how she was feeling. The only difference was that Nia's smile lacked the genuine warmth of the madam's. Nia got out of bed and said she wanted to see the villa. Standing in the familiar home, everything was just as it had been. There wasn't a speck of dust, and nothing had been moved. Nia walked into Ethan's bedroom and happened to see the dagger on the table, still stained with black marks. She picked it up and stood there, stunned. She ran her finger along the blade, and a drop of blood welled up. A nearby servant frantically tried to treat the wound, but she stopped them. Nia placed her other hand on her lower abdomen, gently rubbing it in circles. That's right. She was Anya Nightingale. The Anya who had cheated death, who had miraculously survived after being brutalized by Georgina and attempting to end her life. She was back for revenge. She had spent over 3 years learning new skills and searching for clues, uncovering the entire secret behind the accident of Ethan's mother's death. The clues Ethan had found about his mother had been deliberately leaked by her. Her goal was to make him feel guilty so that she, a B-list starlet, could use him to climb her way to the top. Her plan for revenge against Georgina was ready. All that was missing was the opportunity. She would make Georgina watch as she used the very man she coveted to rise above her, to surpass her. And then she would expose everything, utterly destroying her reputation. She would make them pay back everything they owed her, with interest. The butler watched Nia's every move. Before he left, Ethan had instructed the butler to observe Nia closely, warning him that another mistake would not be tolerated. The moment Ethan saw Nia, he had suspected she was Anya. But there were too many differences from the woman he remembered, and he couldn't be certain. If she was a plant from a rival company or an enemy sent to deceive him, the consequences would be unimaginable. Ethan had a headache. If it really was her, how was he supposed to face Anya Nightingale? Nia's arrival strengthened Ethan's resolve to find the real culprit. He poured all his resources into the search, slowly clearing Anya's name, but he could never pinpoint the true mastermind. Even so, this alone filled Ethan with overwhelming guilt. Ethan stood on the balcony, downing one glass of wine after another. The setting sun cast his long, lonely shadow on the ground. Anya, barefoot, quietly approached him from behind and wrapped her arms around his neck. "Mr. Hawthorne," Anya's voice was soft and seductive. "Something on your mind?" Ethan turned his head. His breath smelled of alcohol, and his eyes were hazy. He stared at Anya's face for a long moment. "Don't call me Mr. Hawthorne," Anya paused, then smiled. "Then what should I call you?" "Call me Ethan." His voice was tired with a hint of laziness. As Ethan leaned toward her, Anya's first instinct was to push him away. But seeing his exhaustion, the deepest feelings in her heart began to surface. Anya composed herself, took his weight, and they sank to the floor together. There was something she needed Ethan for. The lead actress in his company's new film was Georgina Croft. She had to get the role of the second female lead to have a chance to get close to Georgina. Anya led Ethan to the bed. After a storm of passion, she curled up in his arms, tracing patterns on his abdomen with her slender fingers. Ethan held her, his eyes closed. "There's something you want, isn't there?" he said, his voice deep. The tracing fingers paused. "I really can't hide anything from you, can I?" Anya lifted her sweat-dampened face and looked at Ethan with sultry eyes. Ethan's eyes remained closed, his voice was lazy. "Tell me. I want a role in your new film." Anya didn't beat around the bush. She got straight to the point. "The second female lead." "Give it to me." Ethan was silent for a moment. He suddenly grabbed her restless hand and said coldly, "Who do you think you are?" Anya looked straight into his eyes and said, word for word, "Because I'm your lover. I'm your lover, and you have an obligation to keep me." Ethan let out a cold laugh. So it was just a lover's relationship. All their previous intimacy was just a setup for this request. He pushed Anya away, sat up abruptly, and started to get dressed, ready to leave. Anya was half reclined on the bed. Her voice was a little hoarse, but her words were clear. "Don't forget." Rage simmered in his chest, but Ethan forced himself not to lash out at her. "Fine." His clenched fists suddenly relaxed. He was breathing heavily, but his voice was calm. "I'll arrange it for you." Anya was surprised he hadn't exploded. The speech she had prepared was stuck in her throat. All she could say was, "Thanks." Anya's hands gripped the sheets tightly. She despised this version of herself. In the past, even though she had never had Ethan's love, she had never used her body as a bargaining chip, especially not for the sole purpose of getting revenge on Georgina Croft. The thought of Georgina filled Anya with a murderous hatred. The next day, the cast list for the new film was released. After the name of the second female lead were two bold words, Nia, and there was no understudy. When filming began, Ethan drove Anya to the set. After taking care of all the arrangements, he sat down next to her, rested his head on her shoulder, and closed his eyes. Anya stiffened, about to pull away, when she saw Georgina approaching. Georgina was dressed in a gorgeous gown and high heels, her hips swaying as she walked in. Her eyes didn't even flicker toward Anya, they were fixed on Ethan. "Ethan," Georgina called out loudly from a distance. Ethan heard her voice, frowned, and opened his eyes. Anya reached out, pushed his head back down onto her shoulder, and looked at Georgina with a smile. Only then did Georgina notice Anya beside Ethan. The fear she had felt before was gone, replaced by pure hostility. After their last encounter, she had felt uneasy and had someone investigate Nia's background. She found out Nia was just an orphan who had lived abroad and had only recently come to the country to try her luck. She just happened to look like Anya Nightingale and was trying to get Ethan to be her sugar daddy. Georgina decided she had nothing to fear. Seeing Georgina's fearless expression, Anya sneered. The persona of Nia was something Anya had spent 3 years carefully crafting. There was no way Georgina would see through it. She would crush her completely before revealing the truth, making her regret everything. Ethan leaned on Anya's shoulder, silent, wanting to see for himself how Anya would handle Georgina's ruthless attacks. Seeing Ethan so intimate with her, Georgina was consumed with rage and prepared to give Anya a hard time. But as an A-list star, Georgina knew how to maintain her composure. Before filming started, Georgina didn't cause too much trouble for Anya, planning to deal with her during a scene instead. But if Georgina was thinking that, so was Anya. As the cameras started rolling, Ethan sat in the break area, watching their confrontational scene on a monitor. During a break, Georgina pretended to be friendly with Anya, taking her hand and swinging it back and forth. "Nia, your acting is amazing. I think you should be the female lead." "Really?" Anya pulled her hand away, casually flicked her hair, and said coldly, "I don't think so. The personality of the second female lead suits me perfectly." "Not at all, Nia, you're so gentle." Georgina seemed oblivious to Anya's contempt and kept trying to get closer. Anya smiled. "So, are you willing to give me the lead role?" Georgina was stunned. She was just making small talk, she would never give up the role. If she could, she wouldn't even want Anya playing the second lead. Well, in front of the cameras, Georgina forced a smile. "That's not up to me. Even if I said yes, the producers wouldn't agree, right?" "I agree." Ethan, who had been standing nearby for who knows how long, stepped out from behind a curtain and said those 2 words. Georgina's face instantly went pale. "No, you can't," Georgina said in a tearful voice, as if she had been deeply wronged. Ethan's gaze remained fixed on Anya in the distance, not sparing Georgina a single glance. Anya felt Ethan's eyes on her and started walking toward him. As she passed Georgina, Georgina deliberately shifted in her path. Anya paid her no mind and walked straight toward Ethan, their shoulders bumping. "Ah!" With a sharp cry from Georgina, a crowd of paparazzi surrounded them, cameras at the ready, eager for a show. Georgina looked up, her face a mask of grievance, tears in her eyes. "Nia, I'm sorry. I didn't know you wanted the lead role so badly. Your acting is so good, you really should have it, but this role is just so important to me." Anya said nothing, just looked down at Georgina on the floor. Murmurs went through the crowd. Someone even brought up the old story of Anya secretly filming Georgina, saying that they looked alike and had the same vicious heart. "Please don't blame Nia." Georgina suddenly stood up, shielding Anya behind her. She cried, "It's not Nia's fault. She was just a little anxious." "I'm sure she didn't mean it." She turned around, gave Anya a big smile, and asked, "Right, Nia, you were just in a hurry to get to Ethan." Anya calmly looked into Georgina's eyes, still silent. Georgina felt uneasy under her stare and kept avoiding her gaze. The crowd, as if afraid the drama wasn't big enough, began to condemn Anya for her coldness, saying she was willing to be a mistress to get ahead, and that Ethan and Georgina were the perfect couple. Anya clenched her fists and looked up at Ethan, who was watching coldly from a distance. Ethan stood outside the crowd, his arms crossed, also looking at Anya. Suddenly, he saw a flash of what looked like hatred in her eyes. A tightness formed in his chest. He was about to step in and pull her out when Anya spoke first. "I'm surprised. You seem to have fallen so hard just now, Miss Croft, but you don't seem to be in any pain at all now that you're standing up," Anya said, fearlessly meeting Georgina's gaze. Georgina was speechless and could only lower her head and sob for the cameras. Later, Ethan had security disperse the crowd, using filming as an excuse, and the matter was dropped. Her attempt to frame Anya had failed, but Georgina didn't give up. In a later scene, Anya and Georgina were on horseback. Anya had arranged for someone to drug her horse beforehand. Not long after she mounted, she was thrown violently to the ground and lay there, unable to get up. Seeing this, Georgina felt as if fate itself was helping her deal with Anya. She pretended her own horse was out of control, galloped over, and had the horse trample Anya. The set descended into chaos again. Ethan heard the commotion and rushed over. Seeing Anya lying in a pool of blood, he sprinted to her side. Anya collapsed into Ethan's arms, a trickle of blood seeping from the corner of her mouth. She grabbed his shirt and weakly whispered 3 words, "Georgina Croft," before passing out. Ethan's eyes turned red with fury as he stared at Georgina. Georgina dismounted in a panic, pretending to be concerned as she rushed to Anya's side. "Nia, if you can't ride a horse, you shouldn't have been so reckless." Georgina's face was full of worry, but her words were anything but kind. "Ethan, it was an accident. Let me take Nia. I'll get her to a hospital." "Get lost," Ethan roared, holding Anya in his arms, his eyes burning with a murderous rage. Georgina froze, watching Ethan's retreating back, a sharp pain piercing her heart. When Anya woke up, it was late at night. Thanks to the doctor's emergency treatment, she was not in any serious danger. As she regained consciousness, she heard arguing outside her hospital room. Listening closely, she recognized Ethan's voice. The door opened gently. Anya quickly closed her eyes, peeking through her lashes to see Ethan walk in, his body heavy with exhaustion. He quietly came to her bedside, leaned down, and whispered weakly, "Nia, I will find the person who did this. I promise." He fell asleep as he spoke. Anya opened her eyes and looked at Ethan's handsome face. She reached out and gently smoothed the deep furrow between his brows. The hospital was silent. Anya lay back down, trying to rest, when she heard the crisp click of high heels on the floor. The door was suddenly thrown open. Georgina stood in the doorway, glaring at Anya. Ethan opened his eyes at the sound, rubbed his temples, and looked at Georgina. "What are you doing here?" His voice was ice, pushing her away. "What tricks are you planning to pull now?" "Ethan, I really didn't drug the horse," Georgina cried, her heart full of grievance. "You can't accuse me without any proof." Anya smirked from her hospital bed. She had drugged the horse herself. She hadn't expected it to actually make Ethan suspect Georgina. "Then who did?" Ethan shot back coldly. Georgina grew frantic. "It was her to frame me. She drugged her own horse." Ethan rubbed his ears, which were ringing from her shouting. "You think she would risk her own life just to frame you?" he said with annoyance. He had a feeling Anya had done it herself, and Georgina's reaction confirmed his suspicion. But he still placed the blame squarely on Georgina without a second thought. "I suggest you leave immediately, before I get angry," Ethan said in a low voice. "Don't force me to get rough with a woman." Georgina's makeup was nearly ruined by her tears. Ethan was adamant that she had tried to harm Anya, and she had no way to defend herself. She could only lower her head and cry. The next day, the news that Georgina had deliberately drugged a horse to harm a co-star was all over the media. Some even called for Georgina to be turned over to the police. Within a few days, a new star named Nia, who bore a striking resemblance to the late Anya Nightingale, rose to prominence in the entertainment industry. Her popularity quickly eclipsed Georgina's. The media praised her for her superb acting and calm demeanor. Famous directors began writing scripts specifically for her. Georgina was filled with hatred. She arranged a day to meet with Anya. She asked Anya why she was targeting her. Anya looked at Georgina and smiled, a smile so cold it sent a shiver down Georgina's spine. "Don't you find it strange?" Anya lowered her head and stirred her coffee with a long spoon, the chilling smile still on her face. "What's strange?" Georgina asked uneasily. "That I look so much like the girl you had killed." Anya paused, then continued, "and that my name is Nia." Georgina's eyes widened. She hissed, "What are you talking about? I didn't kill her. She committed suicide for love, and what does your name have to do with me?" After she spoke, Georgina froze. "Nia, how does she know it wasn't a suicide?" Georgina clapped a hand over her mouth, staring at Anya in utter shock. Anya assumed she had figured it out and offered a faint, chilling smile. "Are you her long-lost sister, the one who lived abroad?" Georgina asked. But even so, that wouldn't explain how she knew she was the one who had killed Anya Nightingale. Hearing this, Anya burst into a fit of giggles. Georgina watched her, her face a mask of confusion. "No," Anya replied breezily. I'm not her sister, I'm her. Hearing the first part of the sentence, Georgina let out a sigh of relief. As long as this woman had nothing to do with Anya Nightingale, she was safe. Wait, her? Anya Nightingale herself. Seeing the terror on Georgina's face, Anya smiled brightly, confirming her fears. That's right. It's me, swish. Before Georgina could process it, a fork shot past her cheek and embedded itself in the wall behind her head. I'm back. Anya's eyes were venomous, her voice a low hiss. I'm back. After you had me killed, I clawed my way out of hell to find you, Georgina shrieked and fell to the floor in terror. Don't worry, I won't let you die so quickly. Anya walked over and pulled the fork from the wall, her tone icy. I'm going to destroy your reputation, make you feel the despair of a life worse than death. I'm going to make you feel my pain, and then I'm going to return it to you. Doubled, Anya's eyes blazed with hatred as she pointed the fork at Georgina. You dare? Georgina scrambled for her last shred of dignity. If Ethan finds out who you are, he'll torture you all over again to avenge his mother. Still trying to use him. Anya laughed, her voice dripping with sarcasm. You won't get the chance. I've uncovered everything. In a few days, you'll be making headlines. Georgina's face went deathly pale. She collapsed to her knees, shamelessly begging Anya to spare her. Chapter 24. Finding a way, Anya ignored the groveling woman at her feet, brushed off her sleeves, and walked away. On the verge of a complete breakdown, Georgina collapsed back onto the floor, watching Anya's retreating figure with a mixture of terror and hate. Anya wasn't bluffing. The very next day, a tidal wave of negative press crashed down on Georgina. The executives at her studio called repeatedly, demanding answers. Frantic, Georgina clutched her assistant's sleeve, looking at him helplessly, her eyes welling with tears. Georgina's entitled behavior had caused her assistant, Sean, endless grief. He was tempted to let her stew in her own mess, but seeing the tears stream down her face, he felt a pang of pity and decided to help her one last time. Georgina's assistant was a skilled hacker. After making his decision, Sean went home and booted up his computer, beginning a deep dive into Anya Nightingale's background. For 3 days straight, he scoured the web until he finally found a small lead on an obscure international forum. A week after the media had reported Anya's death, a man in a small European town had rescued an unconscious woman covered in blood. The man had frantically called for an ambulance. After a costly and intensive effort, the woman's life was saved. The doctors also informed the man that she was 3 months pregnant and would require careful attention. The woman's name was Nia. Sean immediately relayed this information to Georgina. Her eyes lit up. She shook his sleeve, pleading, "Quick, check, is her child still alive?" Feeling her hand clutching his arm, a faint blush crept up Sean's neck. Georgina looked at him impatiently. Well, hurry up. For the past few days, Georgina had been uncharacteristically docile at Sean's apartment, at times looking lost and vulnerable, which had softened his opinion of her. But this sudden reversion to her demanding self tarnished that image once again. Sean frowned. He had a sinking feeling he knew why Georgina wanted to find this child, and he couldn't bear the thought of an innocent baby getting caught in her crossfire. "Georgina, what are you planning to do to Anya?" Sean asked, his expression serious. "That child is innocent. I won't let you hurt him." Georgina grew frantic, stamping her foot. "Why not? That child is hers and Ethan's. How could Ethan have a child with her?" Tears streamed down her cheeks. Sean stared at her, momentarily stunned. "Fine," he sighed, his resolve wavering as he looked into her eyes. "I can help you find him, but I hope you won't hurt him." Georgina smiled and nodded eagerly, not giving it a second thought. Sean sighed again and turned back to his computer, continuing his search, back at Ethan's mansion. Anya was sitting on the large bed, lost in thought, when her phone buzzed beside her. She picked it up and answered. "Anya," the voice on the other end was rushed. "I think someone's found your information." "What's going on?" Anya asked calmly. "Someone is digging for information on Goldie. The security cameras outside the house were accessed." The voice grew more urgent, punctuated by ragged breaths. "Anya, how are things over there? Is that woman causing you trouble again? I suspect she's the one looking for you. Goldie could be in danger." Goldie was the nickname for the child Anya had risked her life to save, her son, Finn. And the man on the phone was the one who had rescued her all those years ago, the heir to the Vance Group, Leo Vance. "First, don't panic," Anya said with a sigh. Calm down. Can you breach their defenses? Leo was silent for a moment before replying. It's difficult. Their hacker is very skilled. I see. It's okay. Anya was remarkably composed. She gave a small smile and asked, You'll help me take care of him, right? On the other end of the line, Leo froze. An image of Anya's faint smile flashed in his mind, and he felt his face grow warm. He nodded slightly, his voice softening. I'll do my best. After hanging up, Anya's expression turned grim. Although Leo had promised to protect Finn, he was inherently naive and easily deceived. She was still worried. Georgina's schemes were so ruthless that even she had trouble keeping up. Leo stood no chance. Anya rubbed her temples, debating whether to ask Ethan for help. He was the child's father, after all. But then she remembered how he had left her for dead, and her heart grew cold again. He never even believed the child was his, so what good would asking him for help do? He'd probably just use it against her. Feeling powerless, Anya could only pray that Finn would remain unharmed, clinging to a sliver of hope that Georgina wouldn't be monstrous enough to harm an innocent child. But that was nothing more than wishful thinking. When Ethan returned home, he saw Anya asleep, leaning against the headboard. Her face was drawn and pale, her brow tightly furrowed as if plagued by some deep worry. Chapter 25. Infiltrating the Vance home, Ethan reached out and gently placed his hand on Anya's brow, softly massaging the tense muscles until her expression relaxed. Only then did he withdraw his hand. After Sean located Finn, he called Georgina into the bedroom and carefully instructed her once more, telling her she must not harm the child. Georgina held the address, her eyes gleaming with a manic light. Sean looked at her and sighed in resignation. It was clear his words hadn't registered at all. He could only hope that whatever shred of kindness remained in her heart would stop her from doing something unforgivable. With that thought, he turned away. A clatter of keys echoed from his keyboard. When he turned back, Georgina was gone. Sean rubbed his forehead in frustration and dialed Georgina's number. Her voice on the other end was trembling with excitement. Sean, what is it? Thank you so much for these past few days. I can finally deal with Anya Nightingale. Don't get ahead of yourself. Listen to me, Sean sighed, shaking his head. Hotels in that country are hard to book, but I got you the best one. Everything is arranged. Just don't do anything reckless. Remember what I told you. Yes, I know, Georgina said impatiently. Is there anything else? If not, I'm hanging up. Be safe, don't get hurt. Maybe you can relax a little while you're there. Sean was startled to realize how worried he was about her, how many things he wanted to say. But in the end, he swallowed them all, leaving only a simple, no, that's it. Be safe. Georgina, her body aching with fatigue, arrived at the gates of Leo Vance's estate. She had deliberately torn holes in her clothes, making herself look as pathetic as possible. Just as she arrived, Leo was heading out. His first instinct was to be on guard. He blocked the doorway with his body, watching her nervously. Georgina raised her eyes, gave Leo a weak look, and collapsed to the ground. Seeing this, Leo's concern overrode his caution. He rushed over and knelt beside her, gently patting her to check for a response. Georgina's eyes were shut tight, beads of sweat dotting her forehead. Seeing no sign of a trick, Leo instructed his staff to carry her into the house. He had occasionally heard Anya mention Georgina over the years, but had never known what she looked like. Leo, being a simple-hearted man, just assumed this was another girl who had wound up there after an accident, just like Anya. He didn't give it a second thought. After getting her settled, he told a servant to look after her and left. Georgina lay still for a few moments before opening her eyes and scanning her surroundings. She was in a magnificent bed, in a room decorated with an opulent yet elegant style. The furnishings were even finer than those in Ethan Hawthorne's mansion. The door creaked open. Georgina turned her head nervously and saw a maid standing at the door, holding a fresh set of clothes, ready to help her wash up. The maid told Georgina her name was Ando and that she was an orphan Leo had rescued when she was young. Miss, Ando asked curiously, what's her name? My name is Georgie. Georgie Lane, Georgina said, feigning weakness after a moment's hesitation. After she had washed up and changed into the clothes provided, Ando looked at the girl before her in awe. The simple white dress perfectly accentuated her figure, making her breathtakingly beautiful. Just then, Leo returned home from his business. As he looked up, he saw Ando leading Georgina down the stairs. Their eyes met, and for a long moment, they both stood frozen. After a few seconds, Leo snapped out of it. He gestured for Georgina to wait, then disappeared into his bedroom. When Leo reappeared, he had changed out of his suit and into a loose-fitting sweatsuit. Leo asked Georgina a few questions, which she deftly evaded. But whenever he brought up the reason she had come here, she answered only with silence. Leo saw the deep frown on her face and the shimmer of unshed tears in her beautiful eyes. He stopped pressing and agreed to let her stay at the Vance home for the time being. Once everything was settled, Ando led Georgina to her room to rest, leaving Leo alone on the balcony, staring blankly at the starry sky. The next morning, Georgina woke with a stretch, feeling unusually well-rested. After a quick wash, she padded barefoot downstairs and saw Leo at the dining table with a young boy eating breakfast. Georgina gathered the hem of her dress and descended the staircase, a gentle smile on her face. Sensing her intense gaze, Leo blushed and looked down at his plate. Georgina smiled at his shyness and walked over to him. Sensing her presence, Leo quickly reached out and pulled out the adjacent chair for her to sit. Across the table, Finn was delighted to see such a beautiful lady. He put down his food and began to babble and laugh happily. Georgina knew at once this must be Anya's child. "Hello there, little one," she asked sweetly. "What's your name, and where's your mommy?" "My name is Finn," he replied. Mommy went to find Daddy. Hearing that, Georgina's suspicions were confirmed. Beside her, Leo tensed. This woman was a stranger, after all, and with Finn in such a precarious situation, he shouldn't be revealing his identity so easily. Leo shot a worried glance at Georgina, but Georgina was just looking at Finn with a gentle, narrowed-eye smile, showing no signs of malice. Leo shook his head, telling himself he was overthinking things. He smiled at Finn's innocent face. Even the most wicked person wouldn't harm a child, right? To completely win Leo's trust, Georgina spent every day playing and studying with Finn. She took him out to buy toys and treats, showing no indication that she intended to take him away. Leo, who had been cautious at first, gradually let his guard down as he watched them play so happily together. One day, Leo finished work early and came home with some pastries. He saw Georgina sitting on the floor playing with Finn, and the sight of her smiling face made him freeze in the doorway. "Young master, you're back," Ando called out. Georgina turned her head, saw Leo, and smiled. Leo snapped back to reality, shaking his head and patting his cheeks as if to clear his thoughts. In the days that followed, Leo slowly realized he had fallen for this mysterious girl who refused to speak of her past. Every time he tried to push her from his mind, the image of her face and her warm smile would reappear. Leo let go of his vigilance completely, often taking Finn and Georgina out to play together. One afternoon, the three of them were at an amusement park when Leo received an urgent phone call. He rushed off, leaving Finn with Georgina without a second's hesitation. A triumphant smile crept across Georgina's face. "Finally, my chance." After a few more rides, Georgina led Finn away from the park. While Finn was eating, she had Sean book their plane tickets. Then, she took the little boy and left. On the way, little Finn asked, "Georgie, where are we going?" "We're going home," Georgina said with a smile. "Look, Finn, you're flying. Ooh, flying, flying." Finn waved his arms, looking out the window at the sky in excitement. Watching the excited boy, Georgina felt a brief pang of guilt, but she quickly suppressed it. Meanwhile, Leo, finished with his business, was heading home. On the way, he stopped and bought a bouquet of lotuses. He returned home, his heart fluttering, ready to give the flowers to Georgina and summon the courage to confess his feelings. "Goldie," Leo called out happily as he opened the door. The house was silent. Leo assumed Georgina was playing with Finn upstairs and hadn't heard him, so he thought nothing of it and walked inside. Leo instructed the chef to prepare a feast and set the dining table with lavish, romantic decorations. With everything arranged, he asked Ando to go upstairs and call them down for dinner. While she was gone, Leo changed into a clean suit, adjusted his attire, and came out with the flowers hidden behind his back, a broad smile on his face. When he opened the door, he saw Ando staring at the floor, looking anxious and lost. "What is it?" Leo asked, puzzled. "Where are they?" Ando didn't speak, biting her lower lip so hard it trembled. Tears welled in her eyes. Seeing this, Leo grew frantic. "Did something happen?" Still no answer. Ando just shook her head desperately. "Did Georgie not bring Finn back?" Leo grabbed Ando's shoulders and shook her forcefully. The lotuses fell to the floor, the petals scattering. Ando was worried for their safety, but another possibility dawned on Leo. Ando, dizzy from the shaking, managed a weak nod. Leo froze, his expression turning to one of panicked dread. He fumbled for his phone and dialed the number Georgina had left him. When a recorded message announced that the number was no longer in service, the full gravity of the situation hit him. Leo spun around and ran to his study, pulling up flight information for the last 2 hours. Finally, he found a passenger manifest with the name Georgina Croft. Georgie Lane was Georgina Croft even then. Leo refused to believe it. He pulled out his phone, found a photo he had secretly taken of her, and sent it to Anya. The phone beside Anya's pillow vibrated. She picked it up and saw the photo from Leo. Her expression immediately turned grim. Beside her, Ethan sensed her agitation. He rolled over and pulled her into his arms, looking at her with sleepy eyes. "What's wrong? Still not asleep?" Anya glanced at Ethan and frowned. She didn't tell him about Finn. She just shifted her body away and muttered 2 cold words. "It's nothing." Chapter 27. A life for a life. Ethan, annoyed by her coldness, grabbed her face and turned it towards him. "What is it that you can't tell me? What problem can't I solve for you?" Anya stared at him, enunciating each word. Mr. Hawthorne couldn't even solve his own wife's problems, let alone mine. "How did you know?" Ethan froze, his brow furrowing as undisguised anger flared in his eyes. "What is your relationship with her?" Seeing his agitation, Anya gave a cold laugh and turned her head away. "What, you still want to let her off the hook? She nearly died, you know. Where is she?" A sharp pain lanced through Ethan's heart. Are you her?" "Yes." Anya suddenly turned back, her icy gaze locking onto his. Her voice was steady. "I'm back. I came back for revenge. You and Georgina Croft, I won't let either of you go." With that, she pushed him away and tried to get out of bed. "No, it was a misunderstanding." Ethan shed his pride, grabbing her arm and forcing her to stay. He would not let her leave again. "Forgive me, I'll make it up to you." Anya paused. Staying would certainly make her revenge easier. With his power behind her, dealing with Georgina would be far less problematic. But when she remembered everything he had done to her, how he had nearly cost her Finn's life, her resolve hardened. She would never forgive him. Anya turned back to look at him. "All right, then you can help me deal with Georgina Croft." Meanwhile, Georgina, having returned with Finn, contacted Sean to pick them up. When Sean arrived, little Finn had fallen asleep against Georgina, who was also dozing, her head bowed. Seeing that Finn was unharmed, Sean smiled. He gently lifted the boy from Georgina's lap and placed him in the back seat of the car. Then he returned for Georgina, draped his jacket over her, and carefully carried her to the car. Looking at Georgina's weary profile, Sean sighed. If only she hadn't framed Anya back then, she could be living so freely now. When Georgina woke up, she was in a soft, comfortable bed. She turned her head and saw little Finn sleeping beside her. Georgina felt a flicker of confusion. After spending so much time with him, she felt a pang of reluctance at the thought of using his life as leverage against Anya. But you have to make sacrifices to get what you want. Georgina clenched her fists, resolving not to be soft on Finn. He was Anya and Ethan's child, after all. Only by being ruthless could she protect herself from getting hurt. She quietly opened Sean's door and saw that he was still asleep, letting out a small sigh of relief. Returning to her room, she woke the still sleeping Finn and dressed him. She knew that if Sean woke up, he would try to stop her plan. She had to act fast. "Georgie, are we going out today?" Finn sat up, rubbing his eyes, his voice soft and sleepy. "I kind of miss my brother." He looked up, his eyes shimmering with tears. Looking at him, Georgina's heart softened. She gently pinched his cheek and smiled. "Today, I'm taking you to see your mommy." "Really?" Finn's eyes lit up. Georgina smiled and took his hand, leading him toward Ethan Hawthorne's mansion. The doorbell rang. Anya went to the door and froze when she saw the innocent, smiling face on the monitor. Finn's image was only there for a second before it was replaced by Georgina's face, a provocative smile playing on her lips. Anya stood stunned for a moment, then threw the door open, only to find the porch empty. While she stood there, bewildered, her phone rang. She snatched it up and answered. It was a video call. Finn's eyelashes fluttered as he smiled happily at the camera. Anya looked at her son and smiled, tears streaming down her cheeks. "All right, Mommy's seen you. Now it's time for me to get to business, Georgina said, snatching the phone from Finn's hands. Well, Georgina looked into the camera, her face radiating smug confidence. Aren't you surprised? What are you going to do to Finn? Anya's voice was hoarse as she stared intently at the screen. Oh, nothing much, Georgina said nonchalantly. A life for a life. You want your son back, then you'll have to trade your own. Those few words made Anya's face drain of color. It was laughable. She had just barely escaped death with her child. How could she possibly die so easily now? She had already given up her life once, but fate wouldn't let her go. This time, she wouldn't gamble with her life again. Only by living could she make the person who harmed her pay. I'll give you 3 days to think about it, Georgina sneered. In 3 days, I want to see news of your death in the media. With that, she ended the call. Chapter 28. I'm begging you, save him. Anya stared at the black screen of her phone, her eyes filled with helplessness. Ethan, who had just come downstairs, had witnessed the entire scene at the door. He frowned. Anya had been so badly injured back then, the chances of the baby surviving were almost zero. So whose child was this? A wave of anger washed over him. He strode down the stairs, his face grim. Anya, lost in her despair, didn't notice him until he grabbed her wrist with immense force, yanking her backward. She cried out as she fell into his arms. Anya looked up, bewildered, into Ethan's face. His jaw was clenched, his lips a thin line. Without a word, he lifted her into his arms, carried her back to the bedroom, and threw her onto the bed. Seeing the teardrops on Anya's face, Ethan paused, his brow furrowing once more. Whose child is he? Before Anya could answer, he crushed his lips against hers, giving her no room to resist. Anya didn't struggle. All she wanted was for this to be over so she could go save Finn. Her passive acceptance suddenly reminded Ethan of the past, of how she had willingly let him defile her for Lucas Jenkins' sake. A sharp pain shot through his heart. He slowly released her and rolled onto his side, collapsing onto the bed. Anya, who had squeezed her eyes shut, slowly opened them when he stopped, looking at him in confusion. You despise me that much? Ethan said with a cold laugh. Anya didn't answer. A heavy silence fell between them, the air thick with tension. Do you remember that you have a son? Anya suddenly asked. Ethan turned his head to look at her, his eyes cold. Anya's heart felt as if it had been viciously squeezed. After all this time, did he still refuse to believe that there was nothing between her and Lucas? My son is in danger. Anya tried to keep her voice steady, but it trembled uncontrollably. I want to. I'm begging you, please save him. Tears pooled in her eyes, but she fought to keep them from falling. She didn't want to be so weak. Why should I? Ethan tossed out coldly. He's not my son. Why should I save him? With that, Ethan sat up, straightened his clothes, and turned to look at Anya with a detached expression. Anya clutched the tattered remnants of her clothes to her chest, leaning weakly against the headboard. Because he's my son. Your son? Ethan laughed coldly, his eyes fixed on her. If you save him, you can do whatever you want to me. Anya's heart was already frozen over. She had no desire to explain anything about Finn to him. Whatever I want. Ethan turned, loosened his collar, and walked out of the bedroom, leaving behind a single, chilling sentence. If it's something I want to do, no one has ever been able to stop me. After Ethan left, Anya curled into a ball, her body racked with shudders. Her tears soaked half the pillow. Find out everything you can about that boy. Ethan beckoned to his assistant, instructing him to investigate Finn. He still cared about her. After calming down, Ethan realized he couldn't let his own mistakes hurt Anya again. That evening, Ethan sat in a dark room, not going to see Anya. Suddenly, the door opened. His assistant walked in with a stack of files, handed them to Ethan, and quietly exited. Ethan held the file, flipping through the pages by the faint blue glow of his laptop screen. When he reached one particular page, his hand froze. The document detailed Finn's parentage. The box for the mother's name read Anya Nightingale. The box for the father's name was blank. Ethan stared at the empty space for a long time, an unidentifiable feeling stirring within him. If Finn's father was someone else, there would be no reason not to write his name. If it was Lucas Jenkins, even though he was gone, especially since he had died saving Anya, there was still no reason not to fill it in. The only logical explanation left was he, Ethan Hawthorne, was the child's father. Only he, the man who had treated Anya with such cruelty, who had driven her to despair and earned her hatred, would have a reason to be omitted. Ethan was suddenly grateful that he hadn't jumped to the wrong conclusion again. He called his assistant, made a few calls to set things in motion, and then went to find Anya. When he entered the room, she was fast asleep, but her expression was one of anguish. Ethan stepped forward and tucked the blanket around her. He picked up her phone from the nightstand, sent a text to Georgina, and left. The next day, Georgina arrived alone at the location specified in the text and chose a random table. She had received a message from Anya yesterday asking to meet. Suspecting a trap, she had deliberately left Finn in Sean's care before coming. As she looked down, she sensed someone approaching. She looked up to speak, but when she saw who it was, the words caught in her throat. Ethan looked down, his eyes betraying no emotion. "Oh, Ethan, you're here." Georgina forced an awkward smile. "What are you doing here?" Chapter 29. "Thank you, I'm Anya Nightingale's husband." "Who else would come?" His tone was flat, devoid of emotion. Ethan turned, pulled out a chair, and sat down. His gaze locked onto Georgina, his eyes radiating an unnerving chill. Georgina was so intimidated by his stare that she didn't dare speak. Ethan didn't say anything either. The two of them sat in mutual silence. After a while, Ethan raised his wrist and glanced at his watch. "It's about time." He stood up, brushed off his suit, and turned to leave. "Ethan," Georgina's voice came from behind him. "What exactly did you come here for?" Ethan glanced back at her, his lips pressed together, and walked away without a word. The moment he stepped outside, his phone rang. "Mr. Hawthorne, it's done," a deep male voice reported from the other end. A corner of Ethan's mouth turned up. He squinted and grunted an affirmative, then hung up. Before leaving, he glanced back at the table where Georgina sat, then walked away without further delay. Georgina sat at the table, dazed. Suddenly, her eyes widened as if she'd realized something. She pulled out her phone and dialed a number. To her dismay, all she heard was a busy signal. Anxious, she redialed again and again, muttering two words under her breath. "Sean, Sean." At that moment, Sean was lying unconscious in his home. If Georgina could think of a diversion, so could Ethan. He had simultaneously planted people at Sean's place. No matter how Georgina had planned to move Finn, he wouldn't fail. Georgina rushed back to Sean's apartment and pounded on the door. When Sean didn't answer, she finally called a locksmith to get the door open. Seeing Sean unconscious on the floor, Georgina knew that Finn had been rescued. Finn was trembling. He had just seen Ethan's men hurt Sean. In his mind, those men were the bad guys, but he remained silent, sitting obediently in the car. When Ethan saw Finn, the boy's face was drained of all color. Finn looked up and saw Ethan. The tears he had been holding back finally fell. He stretched out his little arms, crying, "Daddy." Hearing that word, Ethan froze, completely still as Finn hugged him. When he came to his senses, Finn was already curled up in his arms. Ethan gently lifted him into the car. "You said, 'I'm your daddy?'" Inside the car, Ethan tried to talk to him. Finn nodded vigorously. "Yes, Daddy. Mommy shows me pictures of Daddy every day." Ethan looked at Finn's small face, which bore a striking resemblance to his own as a child. He smiled and reached out to ruffle Finn's soft hair. The car sped back to the villa. The butler came to open the door and informed Ethan that Anya hadn't left her room all day. Ethan frowned and nodded, taking Finn's hand as they walked inside. "Anya, open the door." Ethan's voice was low, tinged with a hint of gentleness. There was no sound from inside. Anya was lying on the bed with earbuds in. Seeing that she wasn't responding, Ethan knelt down, patted Finn's head, and said softly, "Finn, Mommy's in there. Let's call her out together, okay?" When Finn heard his mommy was inside, he began to call out "Mommy" in a loud, happy voice. Anya faintly heard someone calling for Mommy. She quickly pulled out her earbuds and leaned forward, listening intently. Finn's calls came again from outside the door. Without a second thought, Anya jumped off the bed and threw open the door. The moment it was ajar, little Finn squeezed through the opening and threw himself into her arms. Anya stared at Finn in astonishment, her eyes filling with tears. "How did you find Mommy?" Anya's voice trembled, unable to believe Finn was back in her arms. Finn shouted happily, "Daddy." It was Daddy. Hearing his son's voice, Anya froze. She looked up towards the doorway and only then saw Ethan standing just outside, a look of surprise in her eyes. Ethan walked into the room with a small smile and took Finn from Anya's arms. Anya lowered her head and whispered softly, Thank you. Ethan narrowed his eyes into thin slits, teasing, "What did you say? I couldn't hear you." "Thank you." Anya's face flushed red as she shouted. "I thought you wouldn't save him." Ethan's expression suddenly turned serious. He had the butler take Finn to another room to play, then turned, closed the door, and grabbed Anya's hand. He spun her around and pressed her against the door, his voice deep. "He's my son, isn't he?" Anya avoided Ethan's gaze, turning her head away stubbornly. "No. Thank you for saving my son." Anya paused, then continued, "I will repay you." "Oh." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "And how do you plan to repay me? With your body?" Seeing her son rescued by Ethan had warmed Anya's heart, but the memory of his past actions was a wound that wouldn't close. She still couldn't forgive him. Anya pushed Ethan away, her voice cold. "You decide. As long as it's something I can do, fine," Ethan said, calmly watching the subtle shifts in her expression. His voice was steady. "Then you can owe me. When I think of something I need, you can repay me then." With that, he turned and left, his face a cold mask. Chapter 30. The conspiracy exposed. With little Finn back by her side, he quickly fell into a deep sleep. Anya looked at her sleeping son, her heart aching. If Ethan hadn't rescued Finn today, she might never have seen him again. An image of Georgina's malicious smile flashed in her mind, and Anya couldn't suppress her rage. It seemed the previous lessons weren't enough. It was time for certain things to come to light. It was also a good opportunity to show Ethan what he had been a part of all these years. Anya took out her phone and dialed a number. "Nia?" The voice on the other end was still gentle, but tinged with exhaustion. "Is Goldie okay?" Hearing Leo Vance's voice, Anya sighed softly. "It's okay. Everything's okay now, don't worry." "That's good." Leo breathed a sigh of relief. "Nia, about what happened, I'm so sorry. If there's anything you need me to do, just say the word." Anya was silent for a long moment, then said seriously, "I think it's time for me to go on the offensive." Hearing this, Leo also fell silent. He was the one who had helped Anya investigate and uncover everything Georgina had done. He knew what a ruthless woman Georgina was. And yet, when he thought of the Georgie Lane he had known, even if it was just an illusion, he felt a flicker of pity. When Anya heard the silence on the other end, she asked softly, "Leo, are you?" "No." Before Anya could finish, Leo cut her off, his voice calm. "I'll take care of it for you. Within 5 days, all of Georgina's dirty laundry will be all over the media." The next day, the news was a firestorm, all of it about Georgina Croft. Message logs and even recorded phone calls detailing her plot to frame Anya were leaked. The entire affair was exposed. Only then did the public learn that the infamous nude photo scandal had been orchestrated by Georgina herself. Ethan looked at the news alerts on his phone, his expression growing darker and darker. So it really had all been Georgina's doing. Leo held the last 2 pieces of damning evidence. He gritted his teeth and hit send. These 2 crimes were enough to send Georgina to prison, perhaps even to face the death penalty. This was the punishment Georgina deserved. He could not be soft-hearted. The news spread like wildfire. When Ethan saw the next related story, he had lost interest and was about to put his phone away. But then a friend rushed over, frantically telling him to look at the latest breaking news. Annoyed, Ethan picked up his phone and glanced at it. Just as he was about to lock the screen, his eyes caught an image that made him freeze. On the screen, Georgina was standing in a hospital room, talking to a doctor and slipping him something. On the hospital bed behind them lay Ethan's deceased mother. There was more than one picture. Another was taken inside an operating room. It was still Georgina and the doctor, but what was behind them was no longer just a person lying in a bed. There were 2 hospital beds. On one lay an anesthetized and unconscious Anya Nightingale. On the other was Ethan's mother, her kidney area cut open, the uncensored image shockingly graphic. Ethan's eyes turned red. He had always thought Anya wasn't in the operating room during his mother's surgery. He never imagined she was right there, already under anesthesia, ready for the procedure. The final photo showed the doctor stitching up his mother's wound, while Anya lay on the adjacent operating table, completely untouched by a scalpel. Ethan's mind went blank. He frantically scrolled back to the top of the page, reading every single word with painstaking care. Only then did he discover the truth. His mother's death had nothing to do with Anya. The true culprit was the woman he had protected for so long, Georgina Croft. The media exposed that Georgina, in a bid to frame Anya and prevent her marriage to Ethan, had devised this scheme. She had paid the surgeon a hefty sum to stage the entire drama, never imagining it would lead to Mrs. Hawthorne's death. Ethan's fists clenched so tightly his knuckles turned white. Veins bulged on his forehead, and his eyes were so red they looked as if they might bleed. The story spread faster and faster. Everywhere you went, you could hear people discussing Georgina Croft. Her once loyal fans finally realized her true, venomous nature. Those who had always disliked her seized the opportunity to drag her down to hell, ensuring she would never recover. Georgina sat on her bed, her eyes red and swollen. Sean tried to comfort her, but she threw a pillow at him, driving him out of the bedroom. Before he could regain his footing, the door slammed shut with a deafening bang. "Georgina," Sean pounded on the door, shouting, "they have all the evidence. If you confess now, there might still be a chance to turn things around." There was a long silence from inside the room. Suddenly, the door flew open. The terrified look on Georgina's face was gone, replaced by a mask of pure hatred. "Tell me," Georgina said through gritted teeth, as if talking to herself, "shouldn't I find a way to fight back? I have to make her understand the consequences of crossing me." Chapter 31. Reputation in ruins. Sean opened his mouth to protest, but seeing the resolute fury in Georgina's eyes, he shut it again, swallowing the words that had been on the tip of his tongue. "What are you going to do?" Sean asked. "Bring me her son," Georgina said, a sinister smile spreading across her face. Sean froze, rendered speechless. Seeing his reaction, Georgina wasn't surprised. She scoffed and pulled out her phone. "I knew you wouldn't agree, let alone help me, so I found someone myself. It's already taken care of. Don't think I can't do anything without you. I haven't been wasting my time these past few years. Then why didn't you ask them for help before?" Hearing this, Sean grew calm. "What kind of deal did you make with them?" Georgina faltered, looking down. "What deal? I don't know what you're talking about. All that matters is that I can get my revenge on Anya Nightingale." With that, she turned and stormed out. Watching her defiant back, Sean sighed. "I guess this is where our relationship ends. All this has been exposed for days, yet no police or reporters have come knocking. You must have someone powerful behind you. You don't need me at all." Consumed by her thirst for revenge, Georgina failed to notice the strange fact that despite her heinous crimes being exposed, no one had come to bring her to justice. In a small town abroad, Leo Vance had mobilized his family's considerable influence to shield Georgina, ensuring she would not be arrested. Not 2 days after Georgina left, the Hawthorne mansion was attacked. That day, Ethan and Anya happened to be out for a meeting about a film role. Finn was left at home in the care of the staff. They had thought Georgina wouldn't dare cause any more trouble, but they never imagined she would storm the Hawthorne estate with a team of thugs. When Anya returned home, the servants were lying in pools of blood. Only a few of the oldest, most senior staff had been spared. Finn, who had been playing in his room, was nowhere to be found. Panic seized Anya. She immediately called the police, and then Ethan. By the time Ethan arrived, the police were already processing the bodies in the villa. He rushed inside, searching for Anya. He found her standing in Finn's room, staring blankly at the scattered toys on the floor. "Who did this?" Anya's voice was a choked, trembling whisper. When she received no answer, she spun around violently, grabbing Ethan's shirt. She glared at him, asking through clenched teeth, "I asked you, who did this?" They both knew, without a shadow of a doubt, that it was Georgina. But Anya refused to believe it, seeking some other explanation to comfort herself. Ethan's face was a mask of cold fury. He silently took Anya's hand and led her to the security room. He pulled up the footage. The brutal, bloody scenes played out before their eyes. A group of burly men dragged a screaming Finn into a car and sped away. Anya's eyes were red with unshed tears. "Why? She's committed so many crimes. Why haven't the police arrested her?" Ethan shook his head. He, too, found the situation highly suspicious. Anya's heart turned to ice. A deep, consuming hatred radiated from her tear-filled eyes. Watching her expression, Ethan felt a pang of pain. He gently wrapped his arms around her, looking into her eyes with sincere resolve. "Anya, don't worry. Wait for me. I will save our child." Anya stared blankly at Ethan's retreating back. As the reality of her son's kidnapping sank in, her mind raced. A figure suddenly popped into her head. Leo Vance. Right, when she had asked for his help before, he had seemed hesitant. Could he have actually fallen for Georgina? Could he be the one protecting her? At this thought, Anya quickly dialed his number. Nia. Leo answered the phone quickly. Anya took a deep breath and got straight to the point. Was it you who stopped the police from arresting Georgina Croft? On the other end of the line, Leo fell silent. Anya was already in such a state. He had only wanted to use what little power he had to help her one last time. Do you have any idea that she's still trying to get revenge on me? She ransacked the Hawthorne mansion and kidnapped Finn again. Seeing Leo's silent admission, Anya's heart went cold. She roared into the phone, her voice choked with sobs. Hearing this news, Leo's hand trembled and his phone clattered to the floor, the screen cracking. He had never imagined Georgina could be so vicious that even as she fell into the abyss, she would try to drag someone down with her. Leo let out a self-deprecating laugh. He had been a fool all along. There was no Georgie Lane, only the ruthless, cold-hearted Georgina Croft. He made a phone call and revoked all protection for Georgina. He couldn't endanger one person just to protect another. Chapter 32. It will never be you. After leaving the villa, Ethan quickly tracked down Georgina's location. He hung up with his informant, reported it to the police, and personally led a team to the pier where Georgina was planning to escape. Georgina had chosen two of the strongest thugs from her crew to stay by her side as bodyguards. Little Finn stood beside her, holding her hand obediently. He seemed to have been scared into silence, his face pale, not crying or making a fuss. After receiving the report, the police quietly evacuated all irrelevant personnel. The entire ship was now occupied only by Georgina's group of 4 and Ethan's team, hiding in the shadows. Just as the ship began to pull away from the dock, Ethan stepped out, his face dark and menacing as he stared at Georgina. The 2 thugs beside Georgina immediately moved to block her. Seeing that it was Ethan, Georgina's nervousness vanished. She waved the 2 men behind her and looked at Ethan with an expression of infatuation. "What in the world are you trying to do?" Ethan asked coldly. Georgina just laughed nonchalantly. "It's come to this. Let's play one last big game. Between me and Anya Nightingale, either she dies or I do." "Then you can die," Ethan said with a slight raise of his eyebrows, his voice frigid. "Ethan Hawthorne," Georgina suddenly shrieked. "How could you? We've known each other since we were children. I was supposed to be your wife. What right did that Anya Nightingale have to just waltz in and take my place?" "Because she is the one I love," Ethan said, unmoved by her screaming. "And even if it wasn't her, my wife would never have been you." With that, Ethan gestured with his hand, and a large contingent of police officers emerged from behind him. Georgina's heart sank. Panicked, she stumbled backward, shouting, "No, Ethan, you can't be this cruel. Doesn't the bond we've shared since childhood mean anything to you? Can't you spare me?" Ethan advanced on her, his face grim. "Don't come any closer one more step, and I'll throw him overboard." Georgina grabbed Finn, holding him over the churning sea. Ethan froze. "If you dare harm him, I will make you wish you were dead." "Ethan Hawthorne," Georgina said, her eyes red as she looked at him with a tragic expression. "Since you've shown no mercy, don't blame me for being unjust." With that, she let go. Before Finn could even scream, he plunged into the sea. "No," Ethan's eyes widened in horror. He lunged forward, trying to grab Finn. But one of Georgina's thugs, panicked by the sight of the police, was trying to escape and crashed into Ethan. The dagger in the man's hand accidentally plunged deep into Ethan's abdomen. Ignoring the searing pain, Ethan dove headfirst into the sea, swimming towards Finn. "Finn, I have to save him." "Mr. Hawthorne," Ethan's men cried out in alarm, immediately calling for a rescue team. Fortunately, the police were prepared. A lifeboat was deployed at once, pulling both Finn and Ethan from the water. Ethan, severely injured and having spent time in the cold seawater, was completely exhausted. The moment he saw Finn was safe, the last thread of his strength snapped, and he fell into unconsciousness. The police rushed Ethan to the hospital and called to inform Anya. When Anya arrived, the doctors were still in the middle of a frantic effort to save Ethan. Finn, who had recovered from his shock, was half lying on a hospital bed, crying for his daddy. The moment he saw his mother, his tears could no longer be held back, streaming down his face and soaking the bedsheets. Anya rushed over and scooped him up, her heart aching for him. He was just a child, yet he had been kidnapped twice. If Ethan hadn't arrived in time on both occasions, the consequences would have been unimaginable. The thought made Anya tremble with fear. She didn't know how Ethan was doing. She stayed in the room with Finn until he fell asleep, then gently tucked him in and left the room. Anya found a doctor to ask about Ethan's condition. The doctor told her to wait patiently. They would inform her as soon as the patient was out of danger. A wave of dizziness washed over Anya. Worried, she sat down outside the operating room to wait. She didn't know how much time had passed. Just as she was about to doze off, the doctors emerged with a gurney. Anya shot up, looking at them with hopeful eyes. A doctor stepped forward and reassured her. "Don't worry, he's out of danger. From now on, he just needs careful nursing." Watching Ethan being wheeled into a recovery room, the heavy weight on Anya's heart finally lifted. Although Ethan's life was no longer in danger, he remained in a coma. Anya had to shuttle back and forth between Finn's and Ethan's hospital rooms. During this time, Ethan's friends came to visit him several times. Each time, they found Anya bustling about in his room. Once, she was so exhausted she had fallen asleep, her head resting on his bed. After 3 days in a coma, Ethan finally regained consciousness. He saw a dark figure and let out a faint, groggy sound. Anya turned around and saw Ethan's eyes slightly open. She rushed over and waved her hand in front of his face. Ethan suddenly reached out and grabbed Anya's moving hand, turning his head to lock his gaze with hers. Chapter 33. Injured for you. Pinned by Ethan's stare, Anya panicked and tried to pull her hand away. Hiss! The sudden movement tugged at Ethan's wound, and his hand flinched back in pain. Anya froze on the spot, not daring to move, her eyes wide with alarm as she watched him. As the pain subsided, Ethan squinted at Anya's anxious expression and couldn't help but smile. "What's wrong? Worried about me?" The question snapped Anya out of her trance. She gently pushed away the hand that was still holding hers and pursed her lips. "Who's worried about you?" she said, turning her head away. "Since you're okay, I'll be going." "Where are you going?" Ethan's voice was still weak, trembling slightly. "Finn needs me." Anya started to walk away without looking back, then paused. "Thank you for what you did for Finn." Her voice was so quiet she could barely hear it herself. "If you really want to thank me, come over and sit with me for a while," Ethan said with a small smile. "I did get hurt because of you after all." "No," Anya refused after a brief hesitation. "Finn needs my care." Ethan fell silent, not pressing her to stay. The entertainment news was flooded with stories about Ethan, Anya, and Georgina. You could hear people discussing it even in the hospital, with many speculating on the reason for Ethan's life-risking rescue of Anya. Anya kept her head down as she listened to their discussions, feeling nothing. From the time Ethan woke up until the day he was discharged, Anya never came to see him again. After leaving the hospital, Ethan returned to the villa. The house had been cleaned, and a new set of staff had been hired. Now, the villa looked as if nothing had ever happened. Ethan suddenly froze, a realization dawning on him. He rushed into the rooms, searching for Anya. But after searching the entire mansion, he couldn't find a trace of her. All he found was a letter on the desk in his study. Ethan's hands trembled as he picked up the envelope and carefully opened it, reading each word one by one. The letter was short and to the point. Anya had left and had no intention of returning. She still hated him. No matter how he tried to make amends, she could never forgive him for what he had done. After reading the letter, Ethan's eyes turned red. He called for the butler. "Find her," Ethan said, trying to suppress the rage in his voice. "If you can't find out where Anya has gone, you don't need to show your face in this house again." After the butler hurried away, Ethan's strength seemed to desert him, and he collapsed to the floor. "Why? Why won't you let me make it up to you?" he roared, his voice filled with anguish. Suddenly, his phone rang, shattering the silence in the villa. "Mr. Hawthorne," he answered, and before he could speak, the butler's rushed voice came through. We found, Miss." Nightingale's location, Ethan's eyes lit up with hope. "Miss Nightingale is planning to leave the country. She's at the airport right now. We've already notified the airport, and her flight has been delayed," the butler said, panting heavily. "Mr. Hawthorne, you should hurry." Beep. Before the butler could finish, Ethan hung up, grabbed his jacket, and bolted out the door. He drove like a madman to the airport and finally found Anya and Finn in a corner of the terminal. Seeing Anya from a distance, Ethan stopped. He couldn't be rash. If he suddenly appeared in front of her, it would inevitably lead to a fight. He turned and walked in the opposite direction. A few moments later, an airport staff member approached Anya and escorted her to the VIP lounge. Anya had only been sitting there for a short time when the door was quietly pushed open. She looked up and saw Ethan's face, staring in stunned silence. Beside her, Finn jumped up and ran towards his father, clapping his hands. Ethan smiled, bent down to pick him up, and looked at him with doting eyes. "What are you doing here?" Anya snapped back to reality, her voice cold and devoid of any warmth. Ethan turned, handed Finn to the butler standing beside him, and walked straight into the room. Anya reached out to pull Finn back, but Ethan's large frame blocked the doorway, making it impossible for her to get out. Ethan turned, closed the door firmly, and walked towards Anya. He grabbed her hand, pinning her against the door. "Anya Nightingale, I forbid you to leave me." Anya stared at him for a moment, then gave a cold laugh. "And who do you think you are to restrict my movements? I am your husband and Finn's father." Ethan's tone was unwavering, his voice steady. "Don't forget, we are not divorced yet." Anya shook off his hand, her voice icy. "I wanted a divorce from the very beginning. You were the one who disagreed. And you are not Finn's father. Your child is already dead. Killed by Georgina Croft," Anya added, twisting the knife while Ethan was still stunned. Ethan flinched, a wave of pain, anger, and sorrow washing over him. "No, even if you say something more cruel, I won't let you go." Ethan wrapped an arm around Anya's waist and leaned in to kiss her. Anya turned her head, and his lips landed forcefully on her cheek. Ethan felt the wetness of her tears against his lips. He quickly opened his eyes and saw that Anya was crying, and his heart ached. Seeing Ethan hesitate, Anya quickly pushed him away. Chapter 34. Escape. The shove tore at his wound. A searing pain ripped through Ethan's abdomen, and he bent over, clutching the injury, his face instantly turning deathly pale. Seeing this, Anya felt a pang of worry and reached out a hand to steady him. The moment her hand touched him, Ethan, ignoring the pain, grabbed her arm with all his strength, as if the force of his grip could merge her into his very being. "Don't go," Ethan said through gritted teeth. "I don't care whose child he is. As long as you are mine, that's enough." Anya couldn't hear his words. All she felt was a numbing ache in her arm. She tried to break free, but the harder she struggled, the tighter his grip became. Looking at Ethan's face, beaded with sweat, Anya's heart hardened. She clenched her other hand into a fist and struck his wound with all her might. Ethan's pupils contracted. His hand went slack, and he crumpled to the floor, fresh blood seeping from his injury. Anya looked down at the man writhing in pain, steeled her heart, picked up her luggage, and left. Seeing the butler's worried expression, Anya hesitated for a split second. But the memories of all her suffering flooded back, reminding her not to be soft, not to waver. In the end, under the butler's hopeful gaze, Anya took Finn, turned her back, and walked away. The old butler shook his head, sighed, and went back into the lounge. Seeing Ethan collapsed on the floor, the butler was shocked and immediately rushed him to the hospital. Anya went to the check-in counter with Finn, only to be told that the flight she was booked on had already departed. The agent told her to wait for the next one. Anya didn't ask any questions. She turned to leave, but saw a group of men walking towards her, their eyes fixed on her. She quickly looked around, but there was no one else nearby. They were coming for her. There were too many of them. Before Anya could even think of resisting, they had taken her away. When Ethan woke up in the hospital, the first thing he asked the butler was where Anya had gone. The butler smiled kindly. "I knew you couldn't bear to let her go, Mr. Hawthorne, so I sent some men to stop her. She should be back at the villa by now." Only then did Ethan relax, letting out a long sigh of relief. "You should focus on your recovery, sir," the butler said. "You'll need your strength to convince Miss Nightingale to stay." Hearing this, Ethan nodded. After being brought back to the Hawthorne estate, Anya lacked for nothing in material comfort, but she was a prisoner, unable to go anywhere beyond the villa walls. She was frustrated but helpless. The moment he was discharged, Ethan rushed home. He found Anya playing with Finn, and a sense of relief finally washed over him. He quietly approached her and wrapped his arms around her from behind. Anya's body stiffened. She pushed Ethan away and dragged him out of the room by his arm. Once they were outside, Anya let go of his arm and glared at him, a torrent of words bottled up inside her, yet she couldn't utter a single one. Ethan looked somewhat relaxed, leaning casually against the wall, watching her. "How long are you going to keep me locked up?" Anya finally roared. "This is illegal imprisonment, don't you understand?" Ethan looked at Anya but didn't answer. He just smiled, turned, and started to walk away. Anya reached out to block him, demanding an answer, but he swiftly pinned her against the wall. "Until you forgive me." With that, Ethan gently sealed her lips with his. Anya was shocked and instinctively raised her hand to strike his wound, but it was as if Ethan couldn't feel the pain, letting her hit him without flinching. Seeing that her resistance was having no effect, Anya gave up and allowed him to do as he pleased. The kiss deepened, and slowly, Anya found herself getting lost in it. Ethan suddenly swept her up in his arms and carried her toward the bedroom. His eyes were dark with desire as he laid her on the bed. What followed was a night of tangled passion. The next morning, Anya woke from a deep sleep. Seeing the marks left on her body from the previous night's abandon, her face flushed slightly before her expression returned to one of calm resolve. No, last night was just a moment of madness. Ethan had hurt her so deeply in the past, and now he was holding her captive. She couldn't soften. She had to leave this man. Last night, Anya's compliance had finally made Ethan relax his surveillance on her. This was her chance to escape. Anya quietly got up, washed, dressed, and tiptoed downstairs. She went to Finn's room, woke him, and quickly packed their things. Escaping the villa was a spur-of-the-moment decision, but to her surprise, it went smoothly. She went straight to the airport, bought tickets for the next available flight, and flew to Leo Vance's country. Once on the plane, Anya finally let out a sigh of relief. Her plan was to stay at Leo's house for a while to make a solid plan before moving on to another country. At that moment, Ethan had just returned home, only to find that Anya and Finn were gone. He had thought her cooperation last night was a sign of her surrender. That's why he had quietly left early in the morning, not wanting to wake her. He had kissed her sleeping face and gone to the office in high spirits, even canceling all surveillance on her before he left. That was why Anya's escape had been so easy, but he never imagined she would still want to leave him. Why? Ethan's body trembled with rage. He roared, "Get me the surveillance footage, immediately find her, I don't care what it takes. Find out where she's gone." Chapter 35. Leaving at Leo Vance's estate, Leo was surprised to see the two of them suddenly appear. "Anya, what are you guys doing here?" "I need your help," Anya said, putting down her luggage and getting straight to the point. "I need to find a quiet little town where I can live with Finn in seclusion. I never want to see that bastard Ethan Hawthorne again." Hearing this, Leo was taken aback, but he didn't try to stop her. He took her luggage and said softly, "Nia, you and Finn must be exhausted from the journey. Rest here for a couple of days. I'll start looking right away. As soon as I find a place, I'll have someone take you there so you can leave that bastard for good. Finn and I will also need new identities," Anya said, turning to him with a serious expression. "Ethan has capable people working for him. If I continue to live under my old identity, it won't be long before he finds me." Leo nodded. He arranged for someone to prepare Anya's room, then went into his study to begin his search. The next day, Leo told Anya that he had found a place and had already arranged for new identities for her and Finn. If she was ready, they could leave that very day. Anya looked at Leo with gratitude. Then and now she owed him too much. "Leo, thank you." Leo shook his head. "I was hesitant before, and it almost got Goldie hurt. Consider this my apology. When do you plan to leave?" Leo asked. "The sooner, the better." "All right." Leo looked down and started eating his breakfast, looking thoughtful. Suddenly, Finn spoke up. "What about Daddy?" Anya and Leo both froze. Finn was so young, yet he had already been through so much. Now he had to leave his father again. Neither of them knew how to explain it to him, whether to tell him the truth or continue to deceive him. "Goldie, be a good boy," Leo said, seeing the lost look on Anya's face and knowing she was struggling. He answered for her, "Mommy and Daddy have been through a lot. They need to be apart for a little while. You have to listen to Mommy, okay?" "Oh, okay." Finn's voice was tinged with disappointment. They both thought they had gotten away with it. Just as they breathed a sigh of relief, Finn tilted his head and asked innocently, "If they've been through so much, why do Mommy and Daddy still have to be apart?" The question pierced both their hearts. Yes, why do we still have to be apart? Anya thought back to everything that had happened, her expression becoming distant. "That's something for grown-ups. "Goldie will understand when he's older," Leo answered for her again. Finn nodded, though he didn't quite understand. In just one day, Leo had arranged everything. He told Anya she could leave whenever she was ready. Anya looked at the plane tickets in her hand, hesitating. "Are you worried Ethan will track you through the flight records?" Leo saw her concern, took the tickets from her, and explained, "Don't worry, this is double-proofed. First, you have a new identity. Second, I've chartered a private flight. It won't be logged in the airport system. No matter how powerful Ethan is, he can't find something that doesn't exist." Anya nodded, took the tickets back, said her goodbyes, and left. Anya took Finn and settled in a small town in France. A new place, a new identity. She shed the armor of thorns she had worn for so many years. She knew that Ethan would search for her after her sudden departure. She didn't want to have anything to do with him ever again, yet a part of her couldn't help but hope he would come. Anya shook her head with a self-deprecating laugh, trying to clear her thoughts. She had made her intentions perfectly clear. A man like Ethan would have run out of patience long ago. He wouldn't still be obsessed with her. All she had to do was live here peacefully and take care of Finn. That was enough. Anya looked down at Finn. "Finn, life might be a little tough with just Mommy," Anya said with a smile. It was only after her hasty escape to France that she realized her savings were not enough to give Finn a comfortable life. They could only just get by. "It's okay. Finn's not afraid," Finn nodded obediently, his voice sweet and childish. "As long as I'm with Mommy, Finn isn't afraid of anything." Seeing her son puffing out his chest with determination, Anya's face broke into a genuine smile. She hoped life wouldn't be too hard on them. Chapter 36. "Then I'll move her with my love." Ethan was still searching for Anya like a madman. But no matter where he looked or what leads he followed, he couldn't find a single trace of her. It was as if Anya Nightingale had vanished from the face of the earth. Suddenly, Ethan remembered how Georgina had kidnapped Finn from abroad. Perhaps that was the angle he needed to pursue with this thought. Ethan slammed his hand on the table and immediately ordered his subordinates to investigate all information related to Finn from that time. The security around the Vance family's information about Finn had long been lifted. Ethan quickly found the location of the villa where Finn had lived, and after a brief background check on its owner, Leo Vance, he immediately headed there. But it was as if fate was against him. Ethan was once again a step too late. The Vance estate was now empty. "Damn it," Ethan cursed, but he refused to let go of this lead. A year later, he finally tracked down Leo Vance's whereabouts. By then, it had been 4 years since she had left. Ethan got up and dressed meticulously. Today, he was going to the Vance home to once again search for clues about Anya's location. As if expecting him, the Vance family's butler was already waiting outside. But just as Ethan's foot touched the first step of the villa, a bucket of water rained down from above. Ethan had no time to dodge and was soaked to the bone, frozen in place. The butler, ever prepared, handed him a towel to wipe himself off. Ethan, though annoyed, had no choice but to politely accept the towel and dry himself. "You should go back." A man's voice, Leo's, suddenly came through the intercom as Ethan was about to enter. Leo's voice was cold. "Nia will never go back to you. Give it up, you'll never find her no matter how hard you look." Hearing Leo's words, Ethan's heart leaped. He definitely knew where Anya was, but it was clear he had no intention of giving him any clues. Ethan was silent for a moment, then said, "I know I caused her irreparable harm. I don't expect her to forgive me. After all these years, I just want to see her again. Is she okay?" There was a long silence from inside. Suddenly, the large gate in front of Ethan swung open. He eagerly looked inside, but there was no one there. The butler led Ethan to a room filled with things Anya had used and couldn't take with her. He tried to find a clue, but it was fruitless. He had been searching for so many years. He couldn't give up on this last chance. After leaving the Vance estate, Ethan arranged to stay nearby, making it easier for him to continue his search for Anya. Perhaps because Leo had let down his guard, it didn't take long for Ethan to uncover everything about the Vance family's affairs. Amidst a complex web of clues, Ethan sorted through them one by one, hitting dead end after dead end. But even after all these years, he never gave up, slowly peeling away the layers of fog in a desperate search for a glimmer of hope. Finally, in the 10th year since she had left, he found the last clue. Rain streaked down the windowpane outside, the drops clinging to the glass before sliding down, leaving small trails behind. The man's brow was furrowed as he stared out the window into the distance. Behind him, a mountain of unprocessed documents lay on his desk. He had no desire to deal with them. 10 years and not a single word. That woman was truly good at hiding. His focus blurred, his thoughts drifting away, replaying the memories that he revisited every single day. Ring, ring, a sharp ringing pulled Ethan back to the present. He looked at the landline, his lips pursed. His well-defined hand reached for the receiver and brought it to his ear. "Yes," he said softly. The person on the other end was clearly excited, though he couldn't see them. "Boss, we found her in a small town in France. She's actually not doing very well." Before the assistant could finish his rambling, Ethan's pupils constricted. He slammed down the receiver, grabbed his jacket, and bolted out the door, his dark eyes filled with a hunter's intensity. "Sir, where are you going?" His secretary asked with concern, but he offered no explanation, putting on his suit jacket as he headed for the garage. "Book me a flight. Cancel all my upcoming appointments," Ethan said, shrugging off his rain-soaked jacket and tossing it aside as he called his assistant. Immediately. On the other end, the assistant stared at the dead screen, on the verge of tears. The devil was truly terrifying. Ethan drove in silence to the airport. Staring at the red light ahead, the chill in his eyes deepened. He couldn't wait another second. For all he knew, that woman could fly off again at any moment. Ring, ring, the phone rang again. He answered without hesitation. His assistant's voice came through again. Annoyed by his rambling, Ethan cut him off, ordering him to get it done now. Chapter 37, "Come back with me, okay?" "For heaven's sake," the assistant cried, but he used every trick in the book to get the ticket booked. Their time zones were reversed. While she slept, he was searching. At the airport, Ethan gripped his phone tightly, staring silently at the woman on the screen. The next moment, his assistant called again to tell him he could board. He didn't hesitate. He went through security alone and boarded the plane. "Sir, can I get you anything?" A flight attendant asked with a bright smile, pushing the beverage cart towards him. Ethan closed his eyes, which were brimming with a cold light, and said nothing. The flight attendant, unnerved by his intimidating presence, shivered and politely moved on to the next passenger. "Anya Nightingale," he murmured to himself, a storm brewing in the depths of his eyes. "This time, there's no escape." Morning. Anya stretched languidly, glanced at the calendar on her phone, and smiled. She put down the phone and went to wash up. After washing her face, she looked at herself in the mirror. There were already fine lines around her eyes. When she smiled, they became more pronounced. It seemed that not being a celebrity and neglecting her skincare had aged her quite a bit. She shook her head with a sigh. Why should she care about such things now? Slinging her canvas tote bag over her shoulder, Anya headed for the largest supermarket in town. Seeing the growing crowd ahead, she cursed under her breath. When it got this crowded, she stood no chance against the locals. Just as she was desperately trying to squeeze her way in, a hand pulled her out of the crowd. Annoyed, she stomped her foot and shot an angry look at the person. In that single glance, her eyes instantly filled with tears. Her heart stopped for a moment, then began to beat slowly. "Long time no see." The man's voice was low and hoarse, his exhaustion no match for the joy in his eyes. "I finally found you." Anya wiped her tears, her clear eyes filled with a complex mix of emotions as she stared at the man who had suddenly appeared before her. "I'm sorry, sir, but I don't know you," she said, her voice distant and cold, her entire being covered in thorns that promised to draw blood. Ethan felt a pain like 1,000 cuts. His heart slowed. He was terrified of losing her again. "Anya, come back with me, please." His voice was filled with a pleading tone, a stark contrast to the arrogant man he had once been. "I am not acquainted with you, sir," she said with a cold laugh. If she were to give in so easily, she wouldn't have stayed away for 10 years. She turned, her canvas bag slung over her shoulder, her canvas shoes on her feet, just an ordinary woman. But as she turned, tears streamed down her face. Anya forced a smile that was sadder than tears, constantly reassuring herself, "It's okay, it's okay." Why did Ethan always manage to stir her emotions so easily? She had hidden for 10 years, but in the instant they met, all the memories came flooding back. "Don't go." She was pulled into an embrace, a soft plea whispered in her ear. Her heartstrings were plucked, but she resolutely pried Ethan's hands off her, her actions cold and final, leaving no room for negotiation. "Let go." Anya walked away, her figure looking somewhat desolate, but she wasn't afraid. She wiped the cold tears from her face. After all, she still had her child, didn't she? Clutching her empty tote bag, she broke down, sobbing uncontrollably in a deserted corner, her head buried in her hands. She cried for what felt like an eternity, until she felt dizzy and her limbs grew numb. "Mommy," a small voice called out, pulling her back to reality. She looked up and saw her son standing with that man, watching her quietly. Was this some kind of mockery? At that moment, Anya was a mess, her state completely disheveled. "Come back with me. Please," he pleaded again, his voice full of sincerity. No, even if it meant embarrassing herself in front of her child, she would not yield. This was her only dignity. She stood up, shakily holding onto the railing. Ethan started to reach out to help her, but a harsh glare from Anya made him retract his hand. "Let's go home," she said, her son now supporting her, which gave her a bit more confidence. In the days that followed, he would stand under Anya's window with a bouquet of roses, quietly waiting for her to appear. After giving her the flowers, he would stand aside, not disturbing her life. "Nia, who is this man?" Anya's neighbor asked, her curiosity getting the better of her. Anya didn't reply, but Ethan, who was standing nearby, stepped forward, his eyes full of affection as he looked at her. "I'm her husband." "He is not," she said, bluntly refuting his claim without a second thought. Ignoring her neighbor's curious gaze, she went off to buy groceries alone. Ethan shook his head in disappointment and sighed. The neighbor, however, encouraged him to keep trying, saying she thought they made a lovely couple. He smiled and thanked her for the encouragement. One day, he had a sudden idea. He bought a huge bouquet of roses, prepared a ring, and got down on one knee. "Will you marry me again?" She was just heading out with her son when she met his hopeful gaze. For some reason, she didn't want to refuse. She had thought he would give up easily, but he had been waiting at her door for so long. And he hadn't tried to force her to leave like he used to, just quietly brought her flowers every day. Chapter 38. Small town life. Ethan had been in the small town for a month. No matter how much he begged, Anya would refuse without hesitation and walk away. But Ethan wasn't discouraged. He shamelessly persisted. Over the past month, Ethan's personality had changed dramatically. He was no longer cold and ruthless. He now dedicated all his gentleness to Anya. Sometimes, Anya found the new Ethan particularly frustrating. He was as mischievous as a child and incredibly thick-skinned. Often, Anya was too shy to know how to react to him. Now, being with Ethan felt easy. There were no worries, no troubles, no need to consider other problems, because those things no longer had anything to do with them. One day, when Anya wouldn't let him in, Ethan vaulted over the wall. "Mommy, Mommy," a thief, Finn, who happened to see him, shouted. Ethan quickly covered Finn's mouth to keep him quiet. Daddy snuck in. "Don't tell your mommy," he whispered, crouching in front of Finn. Looking at Finn's little face, Ethan was filled with emotion. Finn was his son, too. After 10 years of separation, how could he not miss him? Anya had actually considered returning to their home country with Ethan. But for the past 10 years, she had lived happily in this small town. People helped each other, every day was joyful, there were no conflicts, and everyone lived a relaxed and carefree life. A few days ago, Ethan's proposal had moved her. But she wasn't alone anymore, she had Finn. Finn was still unfamiliar with Ethan as his father. He hadn't fully accepted his presence yet, so she had to wait for him. Only then could their family live happily ever after. The day came for Finn to start school. Early that morning, Ethan was already waiting outside the house. He wanted to fulfill some of his duties as a father. "Finn, time to get up, it's a school day," Anya called upstairs. Finn came running down the stairs, calling back, "I know, Mommy, I'm coming down." "Here, sweetie, eat up," Anya said, placing breakfast in front of Finn. After breakfast, Anya was planning to walk Finn to school for his first day. But as soon as she opened the door, she saw Ethan standing outside the wall. Anya stood frozen. Finn tugged at her hand. "Mommy, why did you stop?" Anya was in shock. She had never imagined that on this particular morning, Ethan would be standing by the wall, the sun's rays shining down on him, making him seem to glow. Perhaps Ethan had really changed. Anya had seen it with her own eyes these past few days. She wasn't blind, she just didn't know how to accept him. She was a little lost. Anya took Finn's hand and walked out. She acted as if Ethan, a whole living person standing right there, was invisible and walked straight past him. Ethan quickly stepped forward and grabbed her wrist. Anya, I waited for you guys all morning. Are you just going to abandon me like this? Anya turned her head and looked at him. Let go, Finn will be late for school. Hearing this, Ethan scooped Finn up into his arms. I'll take Finn to school today, you can go back. With that, Ethan walked off with Finn. Why did you decide to take me to school today? Finn asked from Ethan's arms. Don't call me you, I'm your father. You should call me Daddy, Ethan said, tapping Finn's forehead with his finger. Finn rubbed his forehead, his little face scrunching up. You're bullying me, I'll tell Mommy. HMPH, after his threat, he even huffed at Ethan. Look at you, a little tattletale already. You're learning all the wrong things. After Ethan said that, Finn ignored him completely. In the evening, when Anya went to pick up Finn, Ethan was already leaving the school with him. Seeing the two of them standing in the glow of the setting sun, Anya's eyes gradually filled with tears. As Finn ran towards her, Anya quickly wiped her tears and swept him into a hug. Ethan jogged over and put an arm around her shoulder. Let's go home, Anya shrugged off his hand, took Finn's, and started running. Ethan followed close behind. Chapter 39. Returning home the next morning, Ethan was waiting outside the door as usual. Seeing Anya with luggage in her hands, his heart filled with dread. Anya, where are you going? He asked frantically. Ethan panicked. He was afraid Anya was going to run away and hide again. The past 10 years of searching had terrified him. He didn't want to go through those sleepless nights of searching anymore. He wanted Anya by his side. But at this moment, Anya's face was wreathed in smiles, a stark contrast to the fear on Ethan's face. Ethan was confused. Seeing her smile, a guess formed in his mind, and slowly a smile began to appear on his face as well. Ethan, take me and Finn back home, Anya said. Her words left Ethan stunned. Anya put down her luggage and waved her hand in front of his face. Ethan finally snapped out of it, scooped Anya up, and spun her around. Okay, we're going home. Put me down, Anya said, pounding on his shoulder. No, I won't, I'll never let you go. The morning air was filled with joyous laughter. Afterward, Ethan immediately called his assistant to book plane tickets. Assistant, book me the earliest flight back home. Huh? Book a flight for what? It was the middle of the night in their home country, and the assistant was still groggy. To take my wife and child home, of course, Ethan said, ecstatic. Huh, what? Oh, the assistant's brain finally kicked into gear. Congratulations, boss, your persistence has finally paid off. The next day, Anya once again set foot on her native soil. Her feelings were complicated. She had left in anger, and now Ethan had found her and brought her back. She didn't know if she had made the right choice, but she hoped she could give herself a happy ending. The assistant was already waiting outside the airport. They all got into the car. Boss, to the main residence or the villa? The main residence. Just as the assistant was about to drive off, Anya spoke. Wait, I don't want to go back there. You go back by yourself. Assistant, take us to the villa. Well, the assistant looked at Ethan, unsure. Ethan could only nod. The assistant then drove towards the villa. Ethan, Finn, and I will stay at the villa for a few days. You should go home and spend time with your parents, Anya said. What are you afraid of? Ethan was a little annoyed. He felt that Anya was afraid to face his parents. Although he had won her over and she had returned with Finn, the knot in her heart hadn't completely untied. I'm not afraid of anything. I just want some time for myself and to let Finn get used to things. As for everything else, we can talk about it later, Anya said, then leaned against the car window and closed her eyes. All right, I'll wait for you. I've waited for 10 years, what's a few more days? Anya didn't say much more, just a simple. But her reflection in the window showed a face full of smiles, her eyes curved into crescents. In the months that followed, Ethan arranged Anya's life perfectly. The villa was redecorated according to her tastes. He would come to eat with her and Finn every day. He arranged for a great school for Finn. When he had time, he would pick up Anya first, and then the two of them would go to pick up Finn from school together. This life wasn't much different from their life in the small town. Every day was happy, a peaceful and joyful family life. But accidents always happen when you least expect them. Chapter 40. The kidnapping incident. Ethan was busy with work and couldn't pick up Finn from school. As it happened, Anya was also delayed that day and couldn't get to the school on time. When Anya rushed to the school, she couldn't find Finn. She pulled out her phone and quickly called his teacher, terrified that something might have happened. "Hello, teacher, this is Finn's mother. Is Finn still at school?" Anya asked anxiously. "Oh, Finn's mother. Finn went to the school gate to wait for you as soon as school was out. I saw him when I was leaving. I offered to give him a ride, but he said he was afraid you would worry. He's such a thoughtful and good boy." The teacher was still singing Finn's praises, but Anya's expression had turned grave. She was worried that something had happened to Finn. Panic began to set in. "Okay, thank you, teacher." The teacher was still saying something on the phone, but Anya cut her off and said goodbye. Anya was extremely nervous. She was so scared. What if something had happened to Finn? She once again took out her phone and called Ethan. "Ethan, Finn is missing. What do I do?" Anya's sobbing voice traveled through the phone to Ethan's ear, and his heart ached. "Anya, don't worry. I'll send people to look for him now," Ethan soothed. "Where are you? I'll come and get you." "I'm at Finn's school gate. I came to pick him up, but I can't find him," Anya said, another wave of worry washing over her. "Wait for me there, I'm on my way." About half an hour later, Ethan arrived. Seeing Anya's red-rimmed eyes, Ethan's heart felt like it was being squeezed. He walked up and pulled her into his arms, comforting her. Ring, 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 Anya's phone rang. She looked at it. It was an unknown number, so she declined the call. But a moment later, Ethan's phone rang. It was the same unknown number. Ethan and Anya looked at each other without a word. Ethan answered the call. "Hello," Ethan's voice was cold, testing. Well, is this the great CEO Hawthorne?" Ethan had a bad feeling but didn't respond. "Why so quiet, Mr. Hawthorne? Where's your little lover, Anya Nightingale? She just hung up on me, you know," the person on the phone said in a flippant tone. "Who is this?" Ethan already had a suspicion, but he wanted to be sure. "Who am I?" "Your son is in my hands, ha 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 ha." "Mr. Hawthorne, how about you and your little sweetheart come and meet me tomorrow?" "What is your goal?" Ethan asked hatefully. "Don't be so fierce. You'll find out when you come tomorrow. The abandoned building in the southern suburbs. 2:00 tomorrow afternoon. I'll be waiting. If you don't come, or if you come alone, you'll never see your lovely son again." The person hung up after saying his piece. After the call, Ethan's face was grim. Anya sensed that something was seriously wrong, that Finn must have met with an accident. She asked anxiously, "Ethan, Finn, what's happened to him?" As she spoke, tears began to fall again. "Anya, Finn has been kidnapped. They want us to meet them tomorrow at an abandoned building in the southern suburbs. And they specifically said I have to bring you, or it'll be bad for Finn." "Ethan, you have to go save Finn." Seeing the tears stream down Anya's face, Ethan's heart broke. He wiped the tears from her cheeks. "Anya, don't worry, I will get our son back." Ethan repeatedly stroked Anya's back, trying to calm her down. In his arms, Anya sobbed uncontrollably. Chapter 41. The most important thing is still you. The next day at noon, Ethan and Anya were on edge. As the meeting time grew closer, they still hadn't called the police, afraid that the kidnapper would do something to harm Finn. However, they had arranged for 2 trusted private detectives to follow them, just in case. "Let's go," Ethan said. He stood up, took Anya's hand, and they headed for the garage. The drive to the meeting point would take about an hour and a half. During that time, Ethan was silent, and Anya was too grief-stricken to speak, sitting quietly, her mind consumed with worry for Finn. The 2 private detectives followed them discreetly in another car. When they arrived, Ethan and Anya got out of the car and looked at the dilapidated, abandoned building before them. Ethan held Anya's hand, leading the way to scout for danger. When they reached the center of the building, laughter echoed from the floor above. "You're finally here. I can finally avenge my goddess. Today, you're all going to die here, ha 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 ha," the person upstairs laughed maniacally. "Where is my son? Give him back to me," Anya couldn't help but ask, her voice filled with urgency. "Your son? Oh, right here." The kidnapper lifted up a bound Finn. Finn's hands and feet were tied tightly, and his mouth was sealed with duct tape. He could only make muffled mmm sounds. Seeing Finn treated this way, Anya felt as if her heart was being repeatedly stabbed. The pain was unbearable. The 2 private detectives waiting outside saw that the situation was dire and called for police backup, just in case. "Does it hurt now? When my goddess was treated like that, my pain was just as intense as yours is now. Now you know how I feel," the kidnapper said, gloating at Anya's anguished expression. Who is your goddess? Ethan asked. My goddess, of course, is Georgina Croft. She is so beautiful and flawless, like an angel from heaven. Her place in my heart is irreplaceable. Georgina Croft, hearing that name, Ethan and Anya understood everything. This person was here for revenge, believing that Anya had committed some unforgivable crime against Georgina. Let me tell you, there's a bomb planted right under your feet. Today, you're going to die here and apologize to my goddess. The kidnapper's face twisted into a grotesque mask as he spat out the words. Georgina Croft? A woman like her is worthy of being called a goddess? What is she? Ethan deliberately insulted Georgina, enraging the kidnapper. How dare you blaspheme my goddess? I'll make sure neither of you dies a peaceful death. Just then, the police arrived. Seeing the kidnapper's guard was down, they revealed themselves. The kidnapper, seeing the police, panicked. He pulled a gun from behind his back and pointed it at Anya. Anya Nightingale, you ruined my goddess. Now you're going to die. With that, he fired a shot at Anya. Seeing the danger, Ethan lunged in front of her. The bullet lodged in Ethan's shoulder. At that moment, the police successfully subdued the kidnapper and rescued Finn. Ethan, don't scare me. Anya's voice was choked with sobs as she cried out to the man who had collapsed on top of her. But Ethan was unresponsive. The ambulance finally arrived, rushing the three of them to the hospital. Daddy, please be okay, Finn cried, looking worriedly at Ethan. Anya looked at Ethan, lying unconscious on the gurney, and was overcome with fear. Ethan, you have to wake up. When you wake up, we'll be together. I won't wait anymore. I won't think anymore. Please, you have to wake up. The in-surgery sign lit up on the display. Outside, Anya waited anxiously with Finn. 3 hours passed. The doctor finally came out. Doctor, how is my husband? Don't worry. He was brought in just in time. It's not a serious injury. He should wake up once the anesthesia wears off. Hearing the doctor's words, the heavy weight on Anya's heart finally lifted. She rushed to the ICU to see Ethan. Looking at him lying on the bed, her tears began to fall again. Holding Ethan's hand, Anya's tears flowed uncontrollably. Ethan, please wake up soon. I'm not angry with you anymore. When you wake up, let's get married, okay? I'm begging you, please wake up. The fingers in her hand twitched. Anya looked at Ethan in surprise. His eyes slowly opened and looked at her. You said it. You can't take it back, he said. Then with great effort, he managed a faint smile. Chapter 42. A happy and perfect life. Ethan spent 3 months recovering, and his shoulder wound was finally almost healed. On the day of his discharge, Anya went to pick him up, but when she got to his room, he was gone. Anya was still wondering where he was when Finn appeared. He took her hand and pulled her outside. Mommy, hurry. When they reached the lawn below the hospital building, Finn ran off, leaving Anya completely bewildered. Then, music started to play from behind her. She turned and saw Ethan, holding a huge bouquet of roses, dressed in a pristine white suit, looking at her from a distance. Ethan got down on one knee, held up a ring box, and said with deep affection, Anya, will you marry me? Anya's eyes welled with tears, her hands covering her mouth. She answered, yes. Ethan had waited 13 years for that one word. Thankfully, all the waiting had not been in vain. After nearly a month of preparations, the wedding was held as scheduled. Nia, you're getting married, her old neighbor from the town congratulated her. Anya looked at the familiar face. Yes, thank you for flying all the way from France to be here. The guests arrived one by one, familiar faces from her past. She suddenly felt a sense of déjà vu, as if she had seen this scene in a dream. Congratulations, Anya Nightingale. The person congratulating her was someone who had once been her rival, now smiling kindly and handing her a wedding gift. Nia, congratulations. Leo Vance had also come. Thank you, Anya smiled, her gaze softening as she looked towards Ethan, who was busy greeting guests in the distance. Over the past 10 years, Anya had seen Ethan's transformation with her own eyes. So when he got down on one knee and proposed to her again, she was moved to tears and nodded in agreement. She didn't want to live in hatred anymore. She wanted to let go of the past, to forgive herself, to give both Ethan and herself the right to be happy. The music began. Guided by the officiant, she, veiled in white, walked step by step towards Ethan. At this moment, Ethan's heart was pounding uncontrollably. His blood rushed, and sweat beaded on his forehead. He was afraid that this was all just a dream. "I'm here," Anya said softly, her eyes smiling. Ethan gently took her slender hand. They stood face to face, their eyes filled with a sea of tenderness. Ethan held her hand tightly, not letting go. The pastor asked, "Mr. Ethan Hawthorne, do you take this woman to be your wife, to live together in sickness and in health, for richer or for poorer, to love and to cherish her, for as long as you both shall live?" Ethan looked at Anya's tear-filled eyes. "I do. Miss Anya Nightingale, do you take this man to be your husband, to live together in sickness and in health, for richer or for poorer, to trust and to follow him, for as long as you both shall live?" "I do. I now pronounce you husband and wife. May you live a long and happy life together."